Good evening. So, how are your exams going? Yes, sir, it's going good. I know your exams are going good. 2 papers are over, remaining 4 more papers to go. Yes. Exams will get over soon. Don't worry about it. But just make sure till the exams are over, you are giving your 100%. You're not basically leaving even an inch from your side. Now, today, tomorrow, day after, 3 days, we are having this auditing marathon. The CA final advanced auditing marathon, full revision, 20 hours will be together. Your exam is on 8th of May. Okay, today is 4th. 4th, 5th, 6th. Yeah, 6th will finish. Still, you'll have 7th on your own and exam day is 8th. So, this is how we are going to revise. I'll just tell you the schedule, how we are going to do it. Today is 4th May. We'll be having a lecture from 8 p.m. to 11:30 p.m. And sir, what is today's topic? We'll be doing SA 200 to 330. Okay, the SA 200 series, SA 300 series. Okay, tomorrow, 5th May. 5th May, we are having 2 slots. 1 slot in morning, 1 slot in evening. The first slot is 7 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. We'll be finishing SA 402 to 720 or make it 810. Okay, all your remaining essays will get over tomorrow. Then I'll go evening 5 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. We'll be doing SRE, SAE, SRS and professional ethics. And your professional ethics. And then on 6th May, that is Monday, we'll be having an evening session only. So whatever essays are done till 5th, you can revise it on your own, and 6th will be having 5 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. all your remaining chapters. Okay, so this is how we are going to revise. Total 20 hours will be together and full subject of auditing will be revising in depth. Just make sure you're not letting your guards down till your examination is over. I know in auditing you got 3 days holiday. I know you got 3 days holiday in auditing, but please don't take it lightly. Majority of the students who fail, they fail in theory subjects. Yeah, they fail in theory subjects. So very rare students will be failing in FR, but many students will be failing in auditing, and I don't want you to take it lightly. Important is how do we write the answers. So we need to understand that the important words, important lines, not just important words as well as important lines comes in our answer. When we are writing answer, so we need to give reference of essay, reference of any sections which are basically prevalent, reference of Caro which is there, and don't just give a reference number. You need to give extract of the provision. Yeah, the extract of what is given in that essay, extract of what is given in that clause of professional ethics, extract of what is given basically in that Caro, that needs to be given properly. Chalo, so let's begin today's session. We are starting with our essays. Now, the material which I am showing you over here, it's our regular batch material. The one who has attended the latest batch as per new syllabus, this is the same material. Sir, what if I have a older batch material of yours? See, I have already told you that new syllabus ka material is available. You can basically take that, or else whatever material you referred, please keep that only open. Sir, what if I have not taken coaching from you? It's okay. If you have not taken coaching from me, if you have taken coaching somewhere else also, it doesn't matter. Please keep the material, whatever you are having, that open. This is revision session. So we'll be basically going through each and every theory plus all important questions which have been marked in our material. So let's start with our engagement standard. I'm starting with preface to the standards. Keep on replying to me, keep on making yourself energetic, and have lots of water. Every 15-20 minutes, 1 sip of water so that you don't feel sleepy. Okay, let's move ahead. We are starting with, first of all, preface to the auditing standards, how the standards came up. So see, first of all, in India, we had basically a standard, there was a research committee which came up with standard on auditing practices. Okay, they came up with some 4 standards or statements which were there actually. So that was there. Internationally, IFAC was established, International Federation of Accountant, and the purpose of IFAC was to bring harmony in. They were written accountancy profession. Accountancy is nothing but related to auditing. ठीक है. Now IFAC came out with International Auditing and Assurance Standard Board. So IFAC, they came up with what? International Auditing and Assurance Standard Board. That board used to come out with high quality international auditing and assurance standards. So internationally, IAAS, International Auditing and Assurance Standard came. ICAI is a member of IFAC. We constituted a APC in 1982. That APC is now converted to AASB, and AASB, Auditing and Assurance Standard Board in India, they come out with basically auditing and assurance standards. But there was renaming, renumbering happened. That happened in 2007. Okay, in 2007, IAASB, they changed the names, numbers, so we also changed the names and numbers. And now that names, numbers, etc. which are there, that are based on the type of services which we provide. If you are doing audit, standards are called SA. If you are doing a review, standards are called standards on review engagement. If you are providing other services, we have a standards on related services, standards on assurance engagement. That's how it is there. Okay, so now currently what do we have? This is important. So we call it as engagement and quality control standard. It's not auditing standard, it's engagement and quality control standard. Under that, we have standards relating to audit, that's called SA. We have standards relating to review, that's SRE. We have standards relating to assurance engagement, other than historical financial information, that's SAE. And we have some standards on related services, agreed upon procedure, compilation, that's SRS. Okay, these are called engagement standard. And whenever you're doing any engagement, to make sure the quality of your engagement, the work is good, uske liye they have a quality control standard, this SQC, standards on quality control. So this 5 together are known as engagement and quality control standards. I told you the standards are now based on the type of services which we give. One is called audit. Audit, we give a high level of assurance but not absolute. And the way of giving assurance is positively. The financial statement shows a true and fair view. Okay, under review, review is less detailed than audit. That's why the level of assurance is less. We give a moderate assurance, and the way of giving assurance is negatively. Nothing has come to our attention which causes us to believe that the financial statement do not show a true and fair view. So that is negatively. Acha, related services may I do agreed upon procedure compilation. Under agreed upon procedure, we do the procedures which have been agreed upon between us, client, or it can be even the third party. Us, client, and even it can be third party. So we are just doing the procedure which are agreed, and whatever fact we find, that we report. It's actually a fact finding. So whatever fact we find, we are reporting. It's a factual reporting. Is there any assurance given? Answer is no. Assurance comes whenever I'm commenting on the figures which have been provided by management. The management gives the figure, I say it shows a true and fair view. That's your assurance. Compilation, we are called upon to help management in preparing something. From a big chunk of data, they want some meaningful information. We prepare a summarized version for them. That's called compilation. So here we are not going for auditing. Here we are going for preparing something for management. Again, there is no assurance. Okay, fine. See the definition of assurance. Assurance refers to what? Auditor's satisfaction as to the reliability of assertion, representation made by one party for use by another party. One party is nothing but management, another party is the users. So auditor's satisfaction as to the reliability of the representations made by one party for use by another party. Okay, next, moving ahead. I already told you that renaming, renumbering, etc. happened. Now, how is the renaming, renumbering happened? How is renaming, renumbering happened? Okay, so pay attention over here. See, first of all your quality control ke standards on quality control, they are between 1 to 99. Okay, now does it mean there are this many? No, as of now there's only one, SQC1. Okay, 100 to 899 is series related to SA, that is standards on auditing. Okay, then they have 2000 to 2699 is standards on review engagement, 3000 to 3699 is standards on assurance engagement, and 4000 to 4699 is standards on related services. It doesn't mean this many standards are there, it's just that series has been given. So see, renamed, renumbered. Okay, under your SA, 100 to 899 under your essay also, that is 100 to 899. What they are telling, pay attention. Under your essay, that is 100 to 899, 100 to 199 introductory matter, they have not given anything in introductory matter. 200 to 299 is general principles and responsibility. General principles and responsibility, we have standards in that. Okay, 300 to 499 risk assessment and internal control. 500 series audit evidence. 600 series is using work performed by others. 700 series audit conclusion reporting. 800 series specialized areas. This is how it has been divided. Names are fine, not relevant. Now, what are the matters issued by ICAI? What all things ICAI issue? One, we understood the issue statements or standards. Earlier it was statements, now standards came. Okay, with standards coming, statement for that topic is no longer valid. Okay. Second, they come out with this general clarification. What they come out? General clarification. If there's an ambiguity in standard, if standard is ambiguous, then for that we are having this general clarification to clarify the things which are in standards, to clarify issue from standards, and standards are mandatory, clarifications are also mandatory. Now, guidance note, they help you in implementing the standards and they are not mandatory, they are for your guidance. Okay, technical guides, basically they guide you. So under the technical guide, they are giving you a broad industry related data, or they give you information about industry kind of thing. Practice manual is past case laws combined together kind of that, and studies and other papers are basically to spread awareness or promote discussion. Now, out of the 6 things, first and second are mandatory, last 4 are not mandatory. Achha, first 3 are issued under the authority of Council of ICAI, last 3 are issued directly by AASB. Fine. Now, what are the objectives and functions of AASB? This is again a good question. Okay, the functions of AASB. 1, to review existing and emerging auditing practices worldwide. What's going on worldwide? And based on that, where do we need a standard? They try to identify where we need a standard. Then they formulate the standard. They review the existing standards. They develop guidance note. They review the existing guidance note. They formulate general clarification, as well as they formulate technical guides, practice manual, studies and other paper. Clear? Okay, next, composition of auditing and assurance standard board is fine. How many people will be there? The term, one chairman ka term is 3 years, other members will be 1 year, that's fine. Okay, procedure for issuing engagement and quality control standard, this is good. This is important. See, whatever important is already marked over here. Okay, first of all, they identify the project, where we need standard, etc. If you need standard in 2 places, they prioritize. And approval for developing it is given by AASB. The AASB identify where we need a standard, they prioritize which one should be done first, as well as they give approval. Okay, for preparation, they form study groups or task force. They form study groups or task force. Okay, now, study group or task force will come out with a preliminary draft. That preliminary draft is then what? So the study group task force come out with what? Preliminary draft. Preliminary draft is submitted to the chairman of AASB, and that chairman of AASB, whatever they feel, the AASB board, if they feel any changes are required, they'll make the changes. Now they come out with the exposure draft. So your consultation debate, this was for preliminary draft. Now comes exposure draft. Okay, exposure draft will be hosted on ICAI website, plus it will be put up in ICAI journal also, and anybody can comment on it, even public at large. The exposure draft is also sent to specified bodies, and there are also meetings held with specified bodies and their comments are also taken. So this is exposure draft. We keep it open for a period of 45 days. Okay? And now based on whatever responses came for exposure draft, the final basically standard is come up. The final standard comes up, it is then given to council and council will then issue it. I told you it's issued under the authority of council. Fine, write a short note on AASB is fine, not much relevant. And this was a question asked in RTP May 23, wherein they're telling you are called upon to do only verification of trade receivable. And it was just a kind of arithmetical accuracy. You have to do take confirmations from them, balance is not matching, do a reconciliation, reply not received, tell reply not received. I'm not commenting on whether trade receivable shows a true and fair view. I'm just basically doing whatever is told. It's an agreed upon procedure. The question is, do I give any assurance under agreed upon procedure? Reply fast. Do I give any assurance under agreed upon procedure? Answer is no. So it's only a report of factual finding. We cannot provide a report giving assurance. Okay, this was basically your Preface coming to SA 200. It's an in-depth revision covering everything. 20 hours will be together. Okay. Now, SA 200 is overall objectives of independent auditor and conduct of audit in accordance with SA. Always try to remember the names of SA. It is relevant. It's required. Okay. First of all, overall objectives of independent auditor. There are two overall objectives. One, to obtain a reasonable assurance that the financial statement as a whole are free from material misstatement, thereby enabling the auditor to express an opinion whether the financial statements are prepared in all material aspects as per the applicable financial reporting framework. The one, you try to obtain a reasonable assurance so that you are able to give an opinion. And second objective is, now you give your opinion, to report on financial statement and communicate as required by SA your findings. Now the word came applicable financial reporting framework. This is important. Now what do you mean by applicable financial reporting framework? See, financial reporting framework is how you prepare your financial statement. Framework is basis. The basis used for preparation of financial statement. Now what is the applicable financial reporting framework? Which will meet the requirements of laws and regulation, which will be suitable as per the basically nature of entity. Like partnership firm preparing horizontal, fine. Company cannot prepare horizontal. It will be suitable based on nature of entity, purpose of financial statement. Acha, so applicable financial reporting framework, it's a financial reporting framework adopted by the management or PCWG in presentation of financial statement, and which is acceptable based on nature of entity, objective of financial statement, and which is as per laws and regulation. Clear? Okay. Who is responsible for preparation of financial statement? We know it's a responsibility of management, plus there are many other responsibility. That's okay. Now, scope of audit. The scope of audit is based on what to be covered in audit. One, it depends on the terms of engagement. Second, the requirement of law. Third, the pronouncement of ICI. What ICI gives? If ICI is told in SA, you have to check this way. Yes, I have to check this way. And fourth, the legal judgments which have came up. Like suppose after Satyam case, if the court has told that if the FD is above 100 crore, we need to personally visit bank, meet the branch manager and confirm whether they really have that much FD. So that way. And now just remember one thing, your terms of engagement cannot restrict the scope which is given in statute or pronouncement of ICI. Now every essay has an objective. To fulfill the objective, there are requirements. This was overall objective of independent auditor. The requirements are also kind of general. One, the auditor needs to fulfill the ethical requirements relevant to audit. You need to follow the ethical requirement. You need to comply with the relevant ethical requirement, including independence. In your code of ethics, which is issued by ICI, they've given, which are that fundamental principles: integrity, objectivity, professional competence and care, confidentiality, professional behavior. These are basically given as a fundamental principles, important 5 fundamental principles. And you should not only be independent, but also appear to be independent in the eyes of others. The first requirement, you need to comply with the ethical requirements relevant to audit. Number 2, you need to maintain professional skepticism, being alert. Okay, so throughout your audit, you should plan and perform an audit with professional skepticism, that there may be circumstances which can cause financial statement to be materially misstated. Now, what is a professional skepticism? It's an attitude that includes a questioning mind, being alert to condition that may indicate a possible misstatement due to fraud or error, and a critical assessment of audit evidence. Achha, if you are professionally skeptic, what are the benefits? If you are professionally skeptic, what are the benefits? It reduces the risk of overlooking unusual circumstances, overgeneralizing the conclusions. You'll be very specific, you asked your questions, etc. And third one, using inappropriate nature, timing, extent of audit procedures. Achha, being professionally skeptic, you're alert to what? So being professionally skeptic includes what? You should be alert to evidence which contradicts other audit evidence, information which brings into question the reliability of document. Remember that signature stroke. Third, conditions that may indicate a possible fraud, and circumstances where you might be required to do something extra than what is told by SA. Achha, now tell me one thing. I told you professional skepticism also includes critical assessment of audit evidence. So whatever audit evidences are there, you have to critically examine the audit evidence. Even if you believe that the management is honest, still you cannot leave your professional skepticism. You still need to be skeptic over there. Third one is professional judgment. You need to exercise professional judgment whenever you're planning and performing your audit. Professional judgment. Now, what's a professional judgment? Application of your relevant training, knowledge, experience. You apply your relevant training, knowledge, experience in making an informed decision about the course of action which are appropriate in the audit engagement. ठीक है? And where do we need professional judgment? So which areas में judgments are required? One, determining materiality, determining the audit risk, उसमें judgment आएगा. Determining nature, timing, extent of audit procedures required. Determining whether we have obtained sufficient appropriate audit evidence, that's again your professional judgment. Evaluating management judgment, whether management judgment are fine or not, we are making our judgment. And last, the drawing conclusions of which report to be given, that's your judgment. Should I give clean? Should I give modified? So this is about professional judgment. Whatever judgment you're making, you should keep it documented. Fourth one, sufficient appropriate audit evidence and audit risk. Okay, sufficient appropriate audit evidence we need to obtain. Okay, to obtain a reasonable assurance, you need to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence so that you're able to reduce the audit risk to acceptably lower level, and based on which you're able to draw a reasonable conclusion. ठीक है. Now word came sufficient and appropriate. Sufficient relates to quantum, appropriate relates to not quality, relevance and reliability. Appropriate is relevance and reliability. Now coming to the word audit risk. Audit risk is the risk that auditor may give an inappropriate opinion when the financial statements are materially misstated. Okay, financial statement contains a material misstatement. I should have given a modified report, but I gave clean. That's audit risk. So instead of modified, I'm giving clean. That's audit risk. Instead of clean, I gave modified. No. That's very rare. Imagine frauds and errors are not there, but I say I found out. So instead of clean, giving modified doesn't come. But instead of modified, frauds and errors were there, you're not able to find it, you give clean, that's covered over here. So when the financials are materially misstated. Now audit risk has three components: inherent risk, control risk, detection risk. Now what's the inherent risk? Suspectability, chances. It's the chances of account balance, class of transaction to a misstatement which can be material individually or together with others. Assuming there are no related control. So if there are no internal controls, what is the chances of fraud and error? That's called inherent risk. Inherent risk depends on type of items. Small items easily can be stolen. So वहाँ पे inherent risk is high. Type of people, type of environment, that's inherent risk. Okay, control risk. It is a risk that misstatement can occur at an assertion level of a class of transaction, account balance, or a disclosure, and that can be material individually or in aggregate, and it will not be prevented, detected, or corrected on a timely basis by the entity's internal control. The first, what are the chances of fraud and error when there are no internal controls? Achha, even after putting internal control risk is what? It will not be prevented, detected, or corrected on a timely basis by entity's internal control. And this control risk depends on the types of control. How are the controls which are there? Based on that, the control risk depends. Third one is detection risk. Detection risk is that even the auditor's procedure, it is a risk that the procedure performed by auditor to reduce the audit risk to acceptably lower level will not detect a material misstatement that exists, will not be, even our procedures will not be able to detect. That's called as a detection risk. Detection risk depends on your quality of your audit. Now, pay attention. Inherent risk into control risk. See, the financial statements have passed through the internal controls. Management prepared it. The inherent into control risk, that's called as a risk of material misstatement. Acha, risk of material misstatement, and multiply that with audit risk, that gives you, multiply that with detection risk, gives you the audit risk. So what is the audit risk? Inherent risk into control risk into detection risk. And there's an inverse relationship between a combined level of inherent risk and control risk with the detection risk. If inherent risk, control risk are high, people are not good, controls are not good, chances of frauds and errors are more. If chances of fraud and error are more, you will check more. If you check more, the detection risk goes down. The inverse relationship between combined level of inherent and control risk with the detection risk. Now, what is not included in audit risk? I told you, instead of clean, you give modified, that's not covered. And number two, because of your wrong opinion, they file a case against you, your reputation goes down, you have some litigations, that all is not covered. Wrong opinion is audit risk. Uske consequences are not audit risk. Okay, now in spite of you doing a very good audit, you cannot give an absolute assurance. The audit will give only a reasonable assurance. So why? Why we are not able to give absolute assurance? So they are telling there are inherent limitations to an audit important. Now, which are the inherent limitations to an audit? One, the nature of financial reporting. See, this is nature of financial reporting and this is nature of audit procedure. The nature of financial reporting, the financial statement itself are based on judgments. And as they themselves are based on judgment, can I say they are not 100% correct? Or we cannot say these figures are 100% correct. Both themselves are based on judgments, which can go wrong. Okay. Number two, nature of your audit procedure. So there are practical and legal limitation. This is nature of audit procedure. If they ask you based on your nature of audit procedure, write down this. See, management intentionally or unintentionally may not provide you the full data. Number two, there may be a frauds which may be committed and frauds are always carefully concealed. Okay. And audit is not an official investigation. You don't have a power like investigating officer. And that's why basically we may not be able to find all the wrongdoings and we are not going in depth of each and everything. No, not possible. So one is nature of financial reporting. Number two is nature of auditing procedure. Okay, third, timeliness of financial reporting and balance between benefits and cost. See, if at all we keep on doing audit in depth, the financial statement will be finalized very late. And if financials are given very late, it's not good. So we need to give financials on a timely basis. Second, the fees which we charge, the services which we provide. So we need to strike a balance between the benefit and the cost. To want 100% everything correct, we need to go in depth of each and everything. And if I want to go in depth of each and everything, cost will be involved. So uske karan what happens is the cost benefit analysis is done and based on that we don't do 100% checking, we do sampling. And fourth, there are other matters. Now see this question. There are certain subject matter wherein auditor's ability to detect the material misstatement is basically less. You are not able to detect the material misstatement in that certain matters. Which are that certain matter? That was a question. So there are four things given. I have to write only this four. I cannot write generally. Which are that certain matter? One, the frauds, particularly frauds involving senior management. Second, existence of related party relationship and transactions. Third one, the non-compliance of laws and regulation, whether it has happened or not, because there are many laws which are kind of operational laws. And fourth one, future events and conditions that may be affecting going concern. The certain subject matter where our ability to detect a material misstatement is very less. Which are that subject matter? This one. So see this May 21 exam question. There are certain subject matter where it's difficult to detect a material misstatement. Which are they? To explain this point number 4. Okay, next one. So this was the first part. Conduct of audit. First part was overall objectives of independent auditor. Second part is conduct of audit in accordance with essay. Okay, so whenever you are doing audit, you need to comply with all the relevant essays. All the relevant essays you need to comply and you need to have understanding of entire text of essay, including the application and explanatory material which is given in each of them. And you also need to write that the audit was performed in accordance with essay. Don't write it if you are not complied with essay. To achieve the overall objectives, you need to basically achieve the objective given in individual essay. So there's individual essays, they've given the individual objective and you need to basically comply or fulfill that. To fulfill that, what you need to do, you need to comply with the requirements given in each and every essay. To comply with the requirements given in each and every essay, unless the essay is not relevant or the requirement is conditional and the condition doesn't apply to you. In an extremely rare case, you may decide that you should be doing something else. So you want to deviate from the requirement of essay? Okay, extremely rare case. Then in that case, you should be doing alternative procedure that also should be documented. If you fail to achieve an individual objective, you may also fail to achieve overall objective. And if you fail to achieve overall objective, either you give a modified report or you withdraw from engagement. Fine, important questions done. So this is your SA 200. Now going to 210. Preface done, 200 done. Are you clear? Okay, one important thing I tell you, it's very, very important to maintain discipline. It should not be like half an hour you are sitting, then half an hour you're not sitting, again half an hour you come back. No. I'm telling you, you please attend full 20 hours. If you want benefit out of this, you need to attend the full 20 hours. all your important questions, all your theories are getting revised together. It is extremely good for you also. And I'm telling you, tomorrow afternoon we have a break. Monday ko morning we are having a break. Tuesday is full off for you. Wednesday is again morning off for you. That time you can study on your own as well. Okay. Now, essay 210, agreeing upon the terms of engagement. So they say auditor and the client should agree upon the terms of engagement. It should be preferably in writing, which is called as a letter of engagement. Fine. Now, before we move ahead, they're telling there are some preconditions to an audit. If these preconditions are not fulfilled, you should not accept the audit only. The question comes at which are that precondition? Two precondition. One, management should have used acceptable financial reporting framework for preparation, presentation of financial statement. They should have used acceptable, like Ind AS applicable, financial should be as per Ind AS. And number two, management agrees to the premises, the basis on which the audit is conducted. Like audit will give you a reasonable assurance, audit will be done on a test check basis. They should agree to all that. So preconditions, there are two preconditions. If preconditions are not present, don't accept the audit. Acha, so which are the preconditions? This. Acha, to decide, to see whether preconditions are fulfilled or not, what do we do? Okay, to establish whether preconditions are fulfilled or not, auditor shall, this is what we need to do. One, you need to determine whether the financial reporting framework which is applied by the management is acceptable. Second, you obtain an agreement from management. You obtain agreement from management that it acknowledges, क्या acknowledge कर रहे हैं? That they are responsible for preparation of financial statement in accordance with applicable financial reporting framework. They are responsible for establishing internal control, and they will provide to the auditor. They'll provide to the auditor access to all information, records, whatever required, additional information which you request, and they will give a unrestricted access to the persons within the entity from where you can obtain evidence. Acha, to decide whether preconditions are fulfilled or not, this is important. Now, if there's a limitation on scope, which is prior to acceptance of audit, now if that limitation on scope will lead to a qualified opinion, you can still accept the audit. But if that limitation on scope will lead you to a disclaimer of opinion, even after accepting audit, I know I have to give disclaimer, don't take such engagement. Fine. Letter of engagement, it's a letter written by auditor to his client. Okay, it's documenting and confirming your acceptance to appointment. We say thank you for appointing, and it contains objective of audit, scope of audit, auditor's responsibility, management's responsibility. Then it will include objective, scope, extent of responsibilities. Okay, which are the principal matters important? Which are the principal matters in letter of engagement? 5 principal matter: objective of audit, responsibility of auditor, responsibility of management. Fourth, which is the applicable financial reporting framework? We may identify it over here, and the way in which the audit report will be given, the expected form and content of any reports which we are going to issue. This is a principal matter. Additionally, anything you can write it, because it is just a terms between you and client. The additional matters can include anything, but our principal matters important. Okay, now if law or regulation is already given responsibilities of management, responsibility of auditor, the question, do I need to give it in a letter of engagement, write it again? So if law and regulation has provided the terms of audit engagement in sufficient detail, so no need to write it again. You can just write down our roles and responsibility will be as per this section of this act. You can write that much. Our roles and responsibility will be as per this section of this act. Now, what's the purpose? What's the purpose of letter of engagement? Now see, in case it's a company, roles and responsibility of auditor, roles and responsibility of management, it's actually given in the Companies Act. But imagine a sole proprietor, a partnership, if they have an audit, as per income tax, sole proprietors, partnership, they also have audit. And now, वहाँ पे terms, roles, responsibility, etc. is not there. So there might be a confusion coming up, thinking that this is not my responsibility, this is not my responsibility. So better is to clarify everything. For that purpose, we are having this letter of engagement. Now, whether to send a separate letter of engagement for audit of branch. I am an auditor of HO also, I am auditor of branch. Component is a branch or a subsidiary. Whether I need to send a separate letter of engagement, the answer is not yes, no, it depends. It depends on various factors. Like who appoints the auditor of component. If appointing authority different, better you send a separate letter of engagement. Whether they need a separate audit report. Okay, legal requirement, legally subsidiary is a different entity, better you give a separate letter of engagement. The extent of work performed by other, one place you are a sole auditor, other place you are a joint auditor. Degree of ownership by parent and degree of independence. It's wholly owned subsidiary, you may not give, partly owned subsidiary, you give. Degree of independence, if it's an independent branch, you give. If it's a dependent branch, you may not give. To whether a separate letter of engagement required for component depends on factor. Same way, whether separate letter of engagement required for a recurring audit. You are appointed for 5 years. Should I give letter of engagement every year? Again, it depends. It depends on following factor. 1. Whether the client has misunderstood the objective and scope, whether there is revision of terms, any change in senior management, any change in ownership, any change in size or nature of entity, any change in legal requirement, any change in financial reporting framework. Last time they had AS, now they have Ind AS. So better I should tell them. Any change in other reporting requirement, any of this is there, then you may give a separate letter of engagement. Achha, if client tells you to change the terms of engagement, achha, so already letter of engagement was signed. Now client is telling you to change the letter of engagement, which will give a lower level of assurance. First of all, don't say yes or no. First, try to understand why management is telling you to change the terms. Why? So you need to understand the reason. The request may come because of change in circumstances, or there was some misunderstanding, or they want to restrict your scope. They don't want to allow you to check something. Acha. So before saying yes or no, you need to basically see any contractual or legal implication. And if at all you feel that even after accepting, you will still be able to do the audit as per the laws and regulation and as per SA, you can agree. So consider legal or contractual thing, and if you see there's a reasonable justification and work will still comply with SA, then you can agree. And if you are agreeing now the new terms are entered, audit will be done as per the new terms. No need to write in your report that the terms were changed in between. No need to write in your report the terms were changed in between. But if you feel there's no reasonable justification, then don't agree to the change. Achha, you're not agreeing to the change, you continue audit as per the old terms. If they don't give you documents, they don't allow you, then in that case it becomes a limitation on scope. But this is a limitation on scope after you have taken up the audit. So either you need to give a modified report or you withdraw from engagement. ठीक है? अच्छा, whenever you are withdrawing, before withdrawing, you need to consider the legal and professional responsibility. Do you have any legal and professional responsibility to inform to the people or to the regulatory body regarding your withdrawal? Remember, whenever I withdraw, ADT 3 is to be filed, resignation of auditor, that all also needs to be considered. Achha, sending a letter of engagement. Sending a letter of engagement is mandatory. Should client sign it and give it back to you? They're telling if roles, responsibility, etc. are defined in statute, they don't sign, don't give it to you, chalega, because it's already there in statute. But if roles, responsibility are not there in statute, you should get it acknowledged from the auditee. Question number 1. I'm doing all important questions. Okay, what are the factors that are relevant in determining that the financial reporting framework used is acceptable one? How do I determine the financial reporting framework used is acceptable one? The one, it depends on nature of entity. So the partnership preparing horizontal chalega, company preparing horizontal, no. Number 2, the purpose of financial statement. If it's for internal purpose, the company preparing horizontal is also fine. But if it's for to be given to shareholders, the final one, then it has to be vertical. Okay, then the nature of financial statement, whether it's a complete set or just a summarized kind of prepared, and what does law regulation say? Okay, so this is how I decide whether it's an applicable financial reporting framework or not. Okay, question number 3, if you check over here, what happened over here is, this is a question on letter of engagement. The question is, they say letter of engagement contains objective and scope, fine, responsibility of auditor, identification of framework. Achha, can I say it doesn't contain responsibility of management? The question is, what is missing over here? The missing part is the responsibility of management. Okay, question number 4. They're talking about there's a limitation on scope before you have accepted the audit. And the question is, what are the precondition? They're not asking how do you check it. The 2 preconditions you write. What are the precondition? How to check it, uske liye wahan pe answer different tha. And second, whether you should accept the engagement. The one is precondition, limitation on scope before acceptance of audit. Question number 5, they are telling, see, always in auditing, last 2-3 lines of questions are very important. So please make sure last 2-3 lines you read it very carefully. Okay, if the agreed term of engagement should be recorded in engagement letter or other suitable in case of written, and what should be included in the terms of audit engagement letter? What should be included? Principal matters you need to write down. Additional matters not required, principal matters will be mandatory. Done. This was your SA 210 to 200 done, 210 done. Going ahead, 220. Moving ahead, SA 220, quality control for audit work. Now see, we did not do SQC1. Now I told you there's one SQC1 we have not done, but much of the content of SQC1 is similar to SA 220. That's quality control for audit work. This is SA 220 and that was standards on quality control. Dono mein quality they are talking about. The difference is SA 220 is only for audit. SQC1 is basically for audit as well as other engagements as well. Acha, and SQC1 mein they talked about the quality control procedure which a firm should implement, and yahan pe they will say that we need to implement this. So here also they talk about the same quality control procedure, but wahan pe they're telling you should implement, yahan pe we will be implementing that. Okay, now as per your SA 220, the auditor is required to implement the quality control procedure. You need to implement the quality control procedures. Which are that quality control procedure? वो आया from SQC1. ठीक है? Why? So that you get a reasonable assurance that the audit complies with the professional standards, legal and regulatory requirement, and the report which you are issuing will be appropriate in the circumstances. ठीक है. They're given a definition of engagement partner. I have a question, whether engagement partner needs to be necessarily a partner of your firm? Answer is no. The engagement partner is what? A partner or any other person in a firm who is a member of ICI full-time practice mein, who is responsible for the engagement, its performance, and for the report to be issued on behalf of firm. So is not necessarily a partner, but we have a full-time CA employed with us. He can also be engagement partner if he is responsible for that engagement, the report to be given on behalf of firm. Okay, Shivam, are you clear? Engagement team will include your engagement partner and all other people who are involved basically in auditing. Your internal auditor. If we take the help of internal auditor, that internal auditor is not a part of your engagement team because he was appointed by the management. Achha, engagement quality control review, it's only for big audits. For big audits, before you give your opinion, you want to be double sure you get it reviewed from someone else within the firm or outside the firm. But that guy was not a part of engagement team. Engagement team mein nahi tha, but we get it reviewed from someone who basically within your firm, your other partner or someone, or outside the firm also from another CA, that is possible. That's engagement quality control review. It's a process designed to objectively evaluate what significant judgments made by the engagement team and the conclusions reached when? Before the report is issued. It's a process designed to objectively evaluate before the report is issued what significant judgments made by the engagement team and the conclusions reached. And the one who's doing such a review is called as engagement quality control reviewer. He may be a partner or another person in your firm, a suitably qualified external person, or a team. If team is there, team will be headed by a chartered accountant. ठीक है. Now every essay I told you as a requirement, objective fulfill के लिए requirement. Now requirement over here, 1, the engagement partner should take the leadership responsibility for the audit. So leadership responsibility, engagement partner shall take responsibility for the overall audit. Okay, number 2, engagement partner has to ensure that everybody is fulfilling the ethical requirement, the entire team members, everybody fulfills ethical requirement. For that, he needs to basically check the things. If he feels, so he has to remain alert, make observation, make inquiry that everybody is basically fulfilling ethical requirement. If you come across basically that someone is non-compliant, then in consultation with other partners of the firm, you have to take appropriate actions. This essay, everything is about what engagement partner should do. Okay, independence, this is important. Independence important. Again, engagement partner has to form a conclusion whether basically they've complied with the independent requirement, not only he but the entire team. They've complied with ethical requirement, independence requirement, and in doing so, what he should do? He should obtain information to identify, evaluate circumstances and relationship that can create threat. You need to obtain, identify, evaluate information, circumstances. From there, you are able to identify threats to independence. Acha, evaluate information on identified breaches of your independence policy and take appropriate actions to eliminate such threat or reduce them to acceptable lower level. See, this standard talks about what engagement partner should do. Okay. Now, whether to accept the audit or whether to continue the audit or not, the engagement partner shall be satisfied that the appropriate procedure regarding acceptance and continuation of client relationship audit engagement have been followed. अच्छा, अगर आपने accept कर लिया and later you come to know, no, this audit was not to be accepted, discuss with your other partners and then you can withdraw from engagement. Take necessary action, will be withdraw from engagement that time. Assignment of team. The engagement partner should be satisfied that the team assigned is basically having appropriate competence and capability so that they're able to do the audit as per professional requirement, and then he can ensure that the report will be appropriate in circumstances. Okay, then engagement performance. The engagement partner shall take responsibility for direction, supervision, performance of the audit to ensure it complies with professional standards, legal requirement. अच्छा, engagement partner shall review. अच्छा, तो work को review करना पड़ेगा. ठीक है. Now consultation. Appropriate consultation should take place within the firm, outside the firm, whenever you're stuck up. अच्छा, तो engagement partner shall take responsibility for engagement team undertaking appropriate consultation on difficult matter. Be satisfied that appropriate consultation have been undertaken within the engagement team, between the engagement team and others. Others can be even outside the firm also. Okay. Next one, engagement quality control review. This is important. I told you, engagement quality control review is for big audit. It's not for all audits. So for financial statement of a listed entity, listed के लिए mandatory, and other audit wherever you feel. तो एक listed के लिए plus other audit engagement which is decided by your firm. Okay, so you need to have an engagement quality control review, and whenever there is an engagement quality control review, the engagement partner shall appoint the reviewer. He should discuss the significant matters with him, and he should not sign the report till the review is completed. So this is what engagement partner should do. Now what should reviewer do? What should reviewer do? तो reviewer क्या करेगा? Normally reviewer checks what the significant judgments made by the engagement team, the conclusions reached. अच्छा, वो 2 लाइन थी, यहाँ पे थोड़ा डिटेल है. The reviewer shall what? He should have a discussion of significant matters with engagement partner. He should review the financial statement, proposed audit report. He should review the selected documentation relating to significant judgments which has been made by engagement team. And he should also evaluate the conclusions reached and whether audit report is appropriate or not. So this is what reviewer does. Discussion of significant matters, review of financial statement, the proposed audit report. Okay, review of selected documentation related to significant judgments made by the engagement team, and evaluation of conclusions reached and whether the report is appropriate or not. Achha, for a listed entity, the reviewer will check 3 things extra. Which are the 3 things that they will check? 1, whether the team was independent, whether appropriate consultation took place within the firm, outside the firm, and number 3, whether the documentation supports the conclusion. Whatever documentation are there, whether they support the documentation or not. Achha, if there's a conflict between the engagement partner's opinion and the engagement quality control reviewer, the partner says clean report, reviewer says modified, what to do? Resolve as per firm's policy. Okay. And this standard told that they need to implement the quality control procedures. Okay. So every firm should have policies for quality control procedures ka implementation, and uske liye they also need to monitor whether there are any changes required in that quality control procedure. So effective system of quality control also includes a monitoring. The engagement partner shall consider the result of firm's monitoring process. This essay doesn't tell about basically which are the quality control procedure. This essay talks about engagement partner is responsible for fulfilling those which were given in SQC1. And SQC1 talked about what? The leadership, Then they talked about basically the ethical requirements, independence, assignment of team, then basically your direction, supervision, review. This all things only they have talked about. Okay, so see this. SQC1 talks about which element: leadership responsibility, ethical requirement, acceptance, continuation of client, human resource, assignment of team, engagement, performance, monitoring. Same. Okay, question number 3 is good. Question number 3 is good. Okay, which information assists the engagement partner in determining whether conclusions reached regarding acceptance, continuation of client relationship are appropriate? Acha, the engagement partners to decide whether to continue the client, whether to accept the client, whether that firm's policy regarding that have been complied or not. So, usme which information assists him? Which information? How do I decide whether we should continue the client or not? The one, integrity of principal owners. Whether the engagement team is competent, you will be able to do that work or not. Okay, whether you can comply with ethical requirements, and significant matters which may have come up during the current or previous audit engagement. Last time there was a big fraud here, so this time I'm not continuing. So this is helping you to decide whether to continue or accept the audit engagement. Clear? Okay, fourth one, see, already asked 2-3 times. Fourth one talks specifically on one of the thing. You know, whether to accept or not, we see the integrity of principal owners, key management person. With regards to integrity, what points do you check? So check over here, what is written? With regards to integrity, give some examples of the matters to be considered by you. I told you last 2-3 lines are very, very important. Okay, with regards to integrity, what do I see? One, the integrity, business reputation of principal owners, KMP, etc. The nature of client's operation, the attitude of principal owners, KMP, etc. Whether they are aggressively concerned with maintaining low fees. Acha, whenever they are telling you keep your fees low, check kam karo, no, there's something fishy over there. They put some limitation on scope on you. Okay, client, there's an indication the client might be involved in money laundering activities. Reason for appointing you and not reappointing the earlier audit firm. So these are with regards to integrity. You can check it out. Did you understand? Okay, important. Question number 8. Okay, under SQC1, the firm's review responsibility, that work of juniors is checked by seniors. Okay, so less experienced team member ka work is reviewed by more experienced team member. What all areas are considered? So whenever you're reviewing junior ka work reviewed by senior, what will be reviewed? One, whether the work is performed in accordance with professional standard, legal requirement. Significant matters have been raised for further consultation or not. If any significant matter came, did they discuss it with you? Okay, appropriate consultation took place or not? Is there any need to revise nature, timing, extent of any procedure? The work performed supports the conclusion. The evidence obtained is sufficient, appropriate or not? And the objectives have been achieved. Whatever was the objective of engagement procedure, wo achieve hua ki nahi? This is what we review. Junior ka work reviewed by senior. This is junior's work reviewed by senior. This is not EQCR. Engagement quality control review kab aata hai? Engagement partner has decided the opinion, but before giving that opinion, the engagement partner gets it reviewed from someone else. That's called EQCR. Okay, question number 9. Okay, question number 9. Engagement quality control review for listed entity will cover which matter? Remember, engagement quality control reviewer checks that 5-7 things given, plus for a listed entity 3 things extra. What were the 3 things extra? Whether the team is independent, appropriate consultation took place within the firm, outside the firm, and documentation supports your conclusion. तो वही लिखा है. तो ये team was independent or not, appropriate consultation has taken place or not, and documentation supports conclusion, working paper support conclusion. These were 3 extra things. Other, he will basically see what? He will see the significant risk identified, judgments made by the engagement team, how the team has disposed of the corrected and uncorrected misstatement which were identified, the matters communicated to TCWG, etc., appropriateness of report. This is all general things you will see. For listed entity, there was 3 things extra. Okay, next question number 10. Timely review of certain areas during the engagement allows significant matters to be resolved on timely basis. Achha, timely review of certain area allows you to resolve the significant matters on timely basis. Which are that areas? Which are that areas where high judgments are involved, where significant risk is there, or areas which partner considers important? Okay, understandable. Next, check. What are the controls? Word is control that a firm may design to maintain confidentiality, safe custody, integrity, accessibility, reliability of your documentation? What are the controls that you may keep for your documentation? Auditor ने जो documentation किया ना, उसके related what controls they should be having so that it's confidential, safe, it can be retrieved properly. तो one, you should use a password, whatever documentation you keep, तो उसका password रखो so that only relevant person can access. Backup should be taken. Procedures for distributing engagement documentation. Who is allowed to view this documentation? Uski procedures, and restricting the access. Okay, question number 12. Okay, in your question number 12, they're telling the independent assessment. Whether the team independent hai nahi hai, that should be done by engagement partner, correct? And engagement quality control reviewer does not have to check independent assessment. Now say it's a listed company. For a listed entity, the engagement quality control reviewer has to check 3 extra things. Whether the team was independent, whether independent assessment is to be looked by EQCR, engagement quality control reviewer. Answer is yes. So यहाँ पे partner was not allowing him. Partner was telling no, that I only have to look, not you. So check over here, the engagement partner is not right. The independence assessment should also be given to engagement quality control reviewer for his review. Okay, question number 13. Acha, you have accepted the audit, but afterwards you felt that, oh, our policy for continuation of client or acceptance of client are not being fulfilled. So now you want to withdraw. So discuss the issues that needs to be addressed before deciding to withdraw. Discuss the issues that needs to be addressed before deciding to withdraw. So this is basically the answer. The policy's procedure on withdrawal will include what? Will include the following. 1. Discussing with appropriate level of management and TCWG regarding the appropriate action that your firm might take. तो आप पहले तो उनको बोलो, sir, if you are not giving documents etc., we will withdraw. So firm might take. Now if it is appropriate to withdraw, discuss with appropriate level of management or TCWG about what? Your withdrawal from engagement or withdrawal for the whole client. Acha, either you are leaving only one of the thing, like I'm leaving company audit, tax audit I'm keeping, or you are leaving the full client, all assignments of the client. Okay. Consider any professional legal responsibility. If you are withdrawing, you need to file ADT3 etc. That also you take. And document all these things. The document, the issue came up, the consultations which you took, the conclusions you reached. Okay, we are withdrawing. And why are you withdrawing? That all you need to document it. Clear? The question was, if you decide to withdraw, or basically issues that needs to be addressed before deciding to withdraw. So 1, discuss with appropriate level the actions which you might take. Discuss with basically the appropriate level of management TCW about your withdrawal. Consider professional legal responsibility related to it. And lastly, document each and everything. Okay, question number 14. Question number 14, you did not check the opening balances properly and now someone is filing a complaint against you. Someone filed a complaint against your firm. You did not check opening balances properly, someone filing a complaint against you. Achha, what should be your policy procedure for handling complaint? That's a question. The question is not on opening balance. Don't write about SA 510. What are the policies required for dealing with such complaints? Every firm, every audit firm needs to have a policy procedure regarding this. The firm should establish policies procedure designed to give a reasonable assurance that you deal appropriately with the complaints allegation that the work is not done as per professional standard or allegations of non-compliance with quality control procedures. Okay. The complaints can come from within or outside the firm. It may be employee also complaining, it may be outsider complaining. You should have a clear defined channel. If someone wants to raise any complaint, how they can raise it. Whenever a complaint comes, you need to investigate such complaint. and a senior partner should basically supervise the investigation. And once you find that things were deficient from your side, you should take appropriate action. The question is, what should be your policy procedure for handling complaint? Majority student wrote over here about opening balances. There's no question on opening balance. How do you deal with complaint? Uske related controls. Okay, moving on to essay 230, audit documentation. Now see, audit documentation is nothing but a record of audit procedures performed, evidence is obtained, conclusions reached. They're also known as your working papers as well. It can be in a physical form, it can be in a soft copy as well, one or more file or folder in your computer. Nature, purpose of documentation is inter-level question, it's fine. And now going to the requirement. You need to prepare documentation on timely basis. It's required at all the stages of audit. Audit planning, audit implementation, audit reporting. Acha. Now, documentation of audit procedures performed, evidence is obtained. Whatever procedures you performed, evidences which you obtained, how do you document? They're telling you need to document in a manner that the experienced auditor is able to understand. You need to document in a manner that experienced auditor is able to understand the nature, timing, extent of audit procedures which you applied, the result of your audit procedures performed, significant matters which came up, and how did you reach to the conclusion. The experienced auditor should be able to understand what all you have done. Plus, you need to document who performed the work, when did he performed it, who reviewed the work, when did he reviewed it, and how did you selected the sample. That all you need to document. Acha, important over here is this. The form and content of your working paper depends on certain factor. The form and content of your working paper depends on certain factor. Which factor? One, the size and complexity of entity. Bigger the entity, you will check more, documentation will be more. Okay, nature of audit procedures performed. Which type of audit procedures you perform, based on that the form and content of your documentation will be there. The risk kitna tha, risk was more, you checked more documentation. Significance of audit evidence is obtained. Nature, extent of exceptions identified, the problems. If I identified more problems, I'll increase the sample size, I'll check more, documentation will be more. Need to document a conclusion or a basis for conclusion. Sometimes the basis for conclusion, why I'm arriving at this thing, it becomes very clear, but sometimes why I'm arriving at this thing, it is not that clear, so I need to document each and everything. And the audit methodology and tools used. Based on methodology, the tools which you're using, the documentation will differ. The form and content of documentation is affected by following factor, important. Okay, next. Okay. If you deviate from a relevant requirement of essay, extremely rare cases you may deviate, but you'll be doing an alternative procedure. Wahan pe you need to document it, and why didn't you follow the essay, but why you went for alternative procedure, that should be documented. Okay, matter coming up after the date of audit report. Remember essay 560 subsequent event? If anything comes up after the date of audit report, how did you handle it? What matter came up? Okay, who checked it later? How did he check it? And uske baad, when did you give a new report? That all needs to be documented. Now, your working papers are to be classified in two parts: permanent audit file, current audit file. That's an inter-level question. Leave it directly. Assembling into a final audit file is important. Okay, the question: do I need to have a final audit file ready before I give my report? Do I need to have a final audit file ready before I give my report? Answer is no. The final audit file should be ready within 60 days. Within 60 days from the date of audit report, and assembling that final audit file is a kind of a admin work. Okay, the completion or final audit file after the date of audit report is just an admin process. It does not involve performance of new audit procedures or drawing new conclusion. It does not involve new audit procedures or new, it's just an admin work. So deleting, discarding superseded documentation, sorting, cross-referencing the working papers, signing off the checklist, etc. Documenting audit evidence that has been obtained, discussed, agreed. I'm not obtaining any new evidences in this assembling stage. Whatever evidences I had already obtained, I'm just gathering it, making it to a final file. It can be done after the date of audit report within 60 days. TK. And how long I should be keeping this working paper? So basically essay 230 says it's your professional judgment, but SQC1 is telling you need to keep it for at least 7 years. Achha, who is the owner of this documentation? Ownership rests with the auditor. Auditor, आपकी You prepared na, it's basically yours only. Acha sir, if client asks me, give me a copy of audit documentation, you may give at your own willingness. Acha, if you are a branch auditor, you're doing a branch audit, principal auditor asks for your documentation, you may give at your own willingness. The branch auditor's documentation is a property of branch auditor. He may give at his own willingness to the principal auditor. ठीक है. Completion memorandum is nothing but a summary. It's basically documentation के अंदर एक छोटी summary बना दी for the significant matters which came up and how did you address. The completion memorandum is basically documenting a summary of what? The significant matters which came up, how did you address it. ठीक है. Question number 3 over here. Now check over here what they're telling. You feel that it is not necessary to document separately compliance with matters for which compliance is demonstrated by the document already there in file. Okay, so question they are asking is, it's not necessary to document separately compliance with certain matters for which there are certain other documents in the file which proves it. If there are certain other documents in the file which proves it, I don't have to separately document for this, I've done this. There are certain other documents in the file which prove it. Okay, give examples of such thing. Give examples of such thing. Acha, so whether you properly planned the audit or not, you don't have to basically do anything. There's a proper audit plan which is there in the file. The existence of a proper documented audit plan demonstrates you planned the audit properly. So no need to document anything else for it. Same way, there's a signed letter of engagement in your audit file which indicates that SA 210 uske requirements you have complied with. You have agreed on to the terms with the client. So uske liye already that letter of engagement is there in the file. ठीक है. When you are giving an appropriate qualified opinion, when your file has appropriate audit report containing appropriately qualified opinion, demonstrate that you have complied with the requirement relating to that qualified opinion wala thing. Same way, whether you maintained professional skepticism or not. So uske liye I don't have to document separately. Whether I maintain professional skepticism or not, I don't have to document separately because there are procedures. I had certain discussions with the management. Wherever I had a doubt, the regular discussions with management took place. It ensures that you were professionally skeptic. Such evidences may include specific procedure performed to collaborate management responses to the auditor's inquiry. Similarly, engagement partner has to have a direction, supervision, review. So we have seen that there were regular meetings. There were regular meetings amongst the team members and you. So it's a proof that you have done a direction, supervision, review properly. No need to separately document for that. So if you have a participation in engagement team discussion, we can understand there was a proper direction, supervision, review done. ठीक है. Okay, question number 4 is simple. Your form and content of documentation depends on what? We had seen that 6-7 points which were there. Okay, this was SA 230 going to SA 240. Keep smiling, pay attention, lots of water. Every 15-20 minutes, one sip of water. Okay, we'll have 8 to 10, then I'll take 15 minutes break. Okay, SA 240, auditor's responsibility in relation to fraud. It's only with regards to fraud in audit of financial statement. Now they've given the definition of the word error. Errors are unintentional misstatement. Fraud is an intentional act done by one or more individual amongst management, TCWG, employer, even third party. Sometimes third party are also involved in fraud and it uses deception to get some illegal or unjust advantage. Now frauds are generally committed in two ways. See, there can be various things of fraud, but our auditor is concerned about only those fraud which affect financial statement. We are concerned with those fraud which affect financial statement. And for that, it's classified in two parts. One, misstatement resulting from fraudulent financial reporting. Misstatements from what? Fraudulent financial reporting, and misstatements from misappropriation of asset. Under fraudulent financial reporting, nothing is stolen. Koi chori nahi hai. Under fraudulent financial reporting, they're just trying to show more profit or they're trying to show less profit. That's basically fraudulent financial reporting. A second one, misappropriation of asset. The employees have stolen something. There is something stolen. Clear? ठीक है. So fraudulent financial reporting is generally done by deception such as manipulation, falsification, alteration of accounting records, intentional omission of something from financial statement, or intentional misapplication of accounting policies. Acha, misappropriation of asset, either goods are stolen or cash is stolen, either goods or cash stolen. ठीक है. Primary responsibility for prevention detection of fraud and errors of the management. ठीक है. Our responsibility is to obtain a reasonable assurance that the financial statement as a whole are free from material misstatement, whether due to fraud or error. But there's always an unavoidable risk. There are inherent limitations. There's an unavoidable risk that certain material misstatement may remain, you are not able to identify it, and risk of non-detecting a material misstatement from fraud is higher than risk of non-detecting a material misstatement from error. And if it's a management fraud, top level management has done it, so risk of non-detecting a top level management or a fraud is more rather than employee fraud. And they are telling we are just responsible to maintain professional skepticism throughout the audit. This is our responsibility. Now, objective of this essay. This essay says you need to identify and assess the risk of material misstatement in the financial statement due to fraud. So try to identify areas where there can be a fraud. Okay? Second, you obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence about the assessed risk of material misstatement by designing and implementing your responses. Your responses are nothing but your procedure. So first you identify areas where there can be fraud. Then you basically obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence about that thing by doing your procedures. And third, after doing your procedures, you identify there is a fraud. Oh, now what to do? To respond appropriately if you find out a fraud. Okay, the first, identify risky area. Check them in detail. After checking, if you find there is a fraud, now what to do? 3 objectives. Okay, first one, to identify risky areas. 1, you remain professionally skeptic. You have a discussion with your team members and you do risk assessment procedure, which are procedures to identify risky area. Now, under risk assessment procedure, what do we do? Okay, so to identify risky area, 1, we are remaining professionally skeptic. We discuss among team members and we do risk assessment procedures. Achha, under risk assessment procedure, you make inquiries with management. You make inquiries with management within the entity. Okay, 1, management's assessment of risk of material misstatement. How do they identify if fraud has happened or not? Achha, management process for identifying and responding to the risk of fraud. Achha, management's communication. Management ka communication to TCWG about its process. And management's communication to employee regarding its views on business practice, etc. So we are basically inquiring with management. Second, we inquire with TCWG. How do they exercise oversight of management process? If management says we are having this process to identify fraud, how do TCWG exercise oversight of it? And we inquire with TCWG whether they are aware of any identified or suspected fraud. Okay, the 1, you inquire with management. Second, you inquire with TCWG. Third, you try to see unusual relationships, some ratios not matching, there may be a fraud. Fourth, other information which you identified during an audit. Okay, during audit you identified the controls are weak in this area, there may be a fraud there. And fifth one, you evaluate fraud risk factors. Achha, now what are fraud risk factors? What are fraud risk factors? They are event or condition that indicate an incentive or a pressure to commit fraud. See, there's an incentive or a pressure to commit fraud or opportunity to commit fraud. The events or condition which is indicating an incentive or a pressure to commit fraud or providing an opportunity to commit fraud. Fraud risk factors have 3 things. Fraud risk factors always have 3 things. 1, there's an incentive or a pressure. Why? Incentive or pressure to commit fraud. Second, there has to be opportunity. And third, attitude or rationalization. The incentive tha, opportunity thi, and if you do it, you say I deserve to live better. Sab karte hain. That's basically rationalization. Achha. So try to evaluate the fraud risk factor. If there is any fraud risk factor, it doesn't mean there is a fraud, but wahan pe there can be a fraud. ठीक है. Now, after doing all your risk assessment procedures, you're able to identify risky area where there can be a fraud. You're able to identify risky area where there can be a fraud. Now, try to think because of it, whether one item will be affected, many items will be affected. If many items will be affected, it's called as a risk at a financial statement level. But if only one type of transaction, only sales or only purchase or only debtor, if one class of transaction or one account balance is affected, that's called as risk at an assertion level. So whether it's a risk at a financial statement level or whether it's a risk at an assertion level. And SA 240 says that you always presume there is a risk in revenue recognition. You always presume that there's a risk of fraud in revenue recognition. This presumption may be rebutted. But if you say that this presumption doesn't hold true, means you're telling there's no risk in revenue recognition, so why do you say so? That should be documented. Otherwise, they generally presume there's a risk in revenue recognition. Okay. Now, so you identified the risky area, because of it, one item affected, many item affected. Okay. Now you need to check those area in detail. Okay, if many items are affected, come out with the overall responses. This is for response for risk at a financial statement level, and overall response will include what? Assign supervised persons of greater knowledge, skill, to send more good people. Then try to add an element of unpredictability in your audit, and try to evaluate whether the accounting policies which are followed by the entity, whether they are kind of indicative of fraudulent financial reporting. So these are overall responses. It doesn't affect one item, many items. I'm sending a good team. I'm adding an element of unpredictability. I'm trying to see all their policies, whether are properly or not, whether they are indicative of fraud. That is there. Achha, if risk is in one item, you do further audit procedure responsive to the risk at that thing. So आप further audit procedure करो, whose nature, timing, extent are responsive only for that thing. Achha, then there's a risk of management overriding control. Controls not being followed, management overriding it. तो उसके लिए what to do? So management is in a unique position to override the control. The risk of overriding control varies from entity to entity. It is different. You need to determine whether you need to perform extra procedures for it or not. ठीक है. So you identified risky area. You evaluated one item affected, many item affected. Many item affected, you came out with the overall response. One item affected, you checked that thing in detail. Okay, after checking whatever evidence you got, you evaluate the evidences. Achha, after evaluating, if there is no fraud, to essay is over. But if you feel there is a fraud, now what to do? If you feel there is a fraud, now what to do? One option, if you feel because of fraud, you are unable to continue. Now, this is important. If you are unable to continue, should you leave directly? No. See the answer. What you should do? Determine professional and legal responsibility applicable in the circumstances, and whether there is a requirement for auditor to report to a person who made the appointment or to the regulatory authority. So any fraud you found, you determine your professional legal responsibility relating to it, and should you communicate about this to the person appointed you or regulatory bodies like 143.12. Yeah, this section 143.12, fraud exceeding 1 crore, you have to tell it to central government. Yeah. So this is one. And now you see whether it's appropriate to withdraw. If you withdraw, तो पहले तो about fraud should you communicate, वो था. Now if you decided to withdraw, now you are withdrawing, तो discuss with the appropriate level of management, TCWG, about your withdrawal and the reasons for withdrawal, and determine whether you have professional legal responsibility to report to regulatory authority. यहाँ पे this is ADT3. So someone asked me, sir, if earlier this point and this point look similar, but this point they were talking about professional legal responsibility to communicate about fraud, and this point talks about professional legal responsibility to report or communicate about your withdrawal. Did you understood both? ठीक है. You communicate to management, TCWG. You communicate to regulatory body only if required by statute. Now you take a representation from management. What representation I need to take from management? About fraud, you take a representation. One, it is their responsibility, management responsibility to design, implement internal control. Second, they have disclosed the management's assessment of risk of fraud to you. Management would have assessed whether there's a fraud or not. They disclosed it to you. Third, they have disclosed to you the knowledge of fraud or suspected fraud. They disclose to you any knowledge of fraud or suspected fraud, and they also disclose to you any allegations of fraud which are there. Clear? So this is your essay 240. Let's see the important questions. Question number 2 is good. Question number 2. Okay, fraudulent financial reporting. Yeah, I told you fraudulent financial reporting, nothing is stolen, but our financials are prepared fraudulently. So mention techniques how management override control or how fraudulent financial reporting take place. So techniques for fraudulent financial reporting or techniques for management overriding control, both are same. 1. Recording fictitious journal entry, particularly at the close of year to adjust the profits. Inappropriately adjusting the assumptions or changing the judgments. They want to show less profit, so they will make higher provisions. Omitting, advancing, delaying the recognition of revenue. Concealing or not disclosing any fact. Engaging in complex transactions which are kind of trying to misrepresent the actual picture. And altering records in terms of any significant or unusual transaction. This is how basically the management overrides control, or they do a fraudulent financial reporting. Acha, now this was question number 2. Question 3 is, this is how fraudulent financial reporting happens. How do you check it? Okay, so irrespective of auditors' risk of assessment of management overriding control, auditors should design and perform procedures. Which are those procedures? How will you check it? So see, first point was how they were doing fraudulent financial reporting. One was recording fictitious journal entry, particularly at year end. You try to check the journal entries to test the appropriateness of journal entry. Take the appropriateness of journal entry. So uske liye what do? Make inquiries of individual, select journal entries, adjustments which are made at the end of the year, usko aap check karo, and test the journal entries and other adjustments throughout the period. Okay, the one. This is one. Second, they were trying to inappropriately adjust assumptions or change judgment. Okay, to do one thing, try to check that assumptions, judgments, whatever are made by the management. So second is review the estimates for biasness. Review the estimates for biasness and whether that indicates a risk of material misstatement due to fraud. So evaluate whether the judgment decision made by the management in making accounting estimate, whether they are reasonable or not. And try to do a retrospective review. What's a retrospective review? Last year they took some judgment, actual came this year. Last year they took judgment, this year actual came. Is it matching, not matching, variation wide, variation small? That is what you should do. And third, they had written over here, they try to enter into a complex transaction. They try to change the terms of significant and unusual transaction. Whenever you find something unusual, try to go in depth. That's the third thing you can do. So for significant transactions which are outside the normal course of business or something which appears to be unusual, so try to understand why they did such a transaction. So try to understand the business rationale. Why they've been entered. Is it basically looking like entered for a fraudulent financial reporting? That way. Okay, so this was about fraudulent financial reporting, how it's done, how do you check it. Question 4 is also good. Achha, question 4. Misappropriation of asset, how it's done. So ways to accomplish misappropriation of asset. I told you frauds can be in 2 ways. So fraudulent financial reporting and misappropriation of asset. How misappropriation of asset happen? One, embezzling the receipts. Okay, so sales done in cash, money came, took away, record nahi kiya. Embezzling receipts. Stealing physical or intellectual property. Causing entity to pay for goods or services not received. Fake purchase invoice booked, payment taken by employee. So causing entity to pay for goods or services not received. Using entity's asset for personal use. These are basically ways of misappropriation of asset. Okay, next one, circumstances relating to possibility of fraud. Which are the circumstances showing possibility of fraud? One, discrepancy in accounting records. Accounting record में discrepancy है तो possibility of fraud. Conflicting or missing evidences. Okay, conflicting or missing evidences. Problematic or unusual relationship between auditor and management. Achha, now there can be a question only on this. Problematic or unusual relationship between auditor and management. This causes us to believe, okay, there might be a fraud. So one, they don't give records to you, denial of access. They put undue time pressure. Sir, 2 दिन में finish कर दो. So they are trying to hide something. They don't want us to go in detail. Unusual delay in providing the requested information. Unwillingness to facilitate auditors access to key electronic files. Sir, software में आपको access नहीं मिलेगा. You want anything, we'll give you hard copy. Denial of access to key IT staff. ठीक है. Unwillingness to address the identified deficiency in internal control. Unwillingness to add or revise the disclosures which are to be made in financial. So there's a problematic relationship between auditor and management. This is also indicative of fraud. Circumstances which indicates fraud. So discrepancy in accounting record, conflicting or missing evidences, problematic or unusual relationship between the auditor and the management, and last one is others. Okay. Now, one of the ways to identify risky area was discussion among team members. Because see, you only don't go for doing audit, your team member also goes for doing audit, so they might be able to identify something. So we discuss amongst team members. Now question over here is, what are the benefits of engagement team discussion and what do we discuss? So how discussion will be helpful and what matters can be discussed? Two questions. How it can be helpful? That provides opportunity for more experienced team member to share their insight. It allows the engagement team members to exchange information about the business risk, how financials can be misstated, assist the team member to gain a better understanding of what procedures they need to do. Discuss हुआ है तो. And it provides a basis where people can communicate, share new information obtained throughout the audit. So this is how it will benefit. Now, what all things can be discussed? What all things can be discussed? How and where we believe the financial statement might be susceptible for material misstatement. Circumstances which might indicate यहाँ पे they are trying to show more profit, less profit. ठीक है. External internal factor that creates incentive or pressure for management to commit fraud. Okay, they need loan. So they are basically they'll be trying to show good profits. ठीक है. Then any unusual or unexplained change in behavior or lifestyle of employee. ठीक है. We can also discuss that all of us needs to maintain professional skepticism. We have to be alert that types of circumstances where there can be a fraud, how we can add an element of unpredictability when we are doing audit. ठीक है. Any allegations of fraud can be discussed. How management may override control, that can be discussed. So these are all things which may be discussed. So why discussion is beneficial and what all discussions can take place. Next question. See, whenever basically there's a risk affecting financial statement level, many item. One of the overall response was adding unpredictability to your audit procedure. How we can add unpredictability in our audit procedure? One, try to check the things which generally you don't check. So normally we used to check above 2 lakh. Now this time you're going and checking below 2 lakh. Okay, timing when you go and check, usko aap change kar do. Different sampling method you use or different location you go on an unannounced basis. So this is basically how we can add an element of unpredictability. Fine. Question number 9. Question number 9. What are the indicators that may suggest that significant transaction outside the normal course may have been entered? So which indicates that outside the normal course wala transaction may have been entered, and that may be for fraud. Okay, so when transaction is overly complex, बहुत ज़्यादा complex है, there's an inadequate documentation relating to it. Management is putting an emphasis, no sir, this should be accounted in this way only. They're not ready to accept that, no, it should not be this way, it should be other way. Okay, transaction involve non-consolidated related party. It's a related party, but it's not being consolidated. Okay, like Ind AS में, the entities created for post-employment benefit. Infosys created Infosys Gratuity Trust. That is not to be consolidated. तो उनके साथ transaction है and they have not been properly reviewed or approved by TCWG. Transaction with previous unidentified related parties. तो previously unidentified related party के साथ transaction, or there were transactions with parties which do not have a financial strength. I took a loan from Piyun of 10 crore. यार Piyun से loan लिया 10 crore, no, there's something fishy. So these are all significant transaction outside the normal course which basically creates a doubt. So indicators of such things. Okay, question number 10 is fine. Other matters related to fraud is not relevant. 11th not important, 12th not important, 13 nahi hai, 14 nahi hai. Acha, 15. Acha, it's not important, but I want to discuss one of the point in 15. Okay, what are the risk factors relating to misstatement from fraudulent financial reporting? See, whenever they call the word risk factor includes three things: incentive pressure, opportunity, attitude, and rationalization. Okay, so this is risk factor relating to fraudulent financial reporting. Why fraudulent financial reporting? उसके लिए मतलब risk factors are asked. So one, incentive or pressure. Why they do fraudulent financial reporting? So financial stability or profitability is threatened. Suppose because of economic or industry or some operating condition, profit this time has gone down, but if they'll show down profit, problem hoga, investors will question this, that, वो सारी चीजें. तो pressure or incentive, तो वो pressure था. Excessive pressure exists for management to meet the requirement or expectation of third party, etc. तो वो था. अच्छा, opportunity. Fraudulent financial reporting करने के लिए opportunity, we have a significant related party transaction which is outside normal course, problem नहीं आएगा. अच्छा, we have a lot of estimates basically involved, so we can change those estimates, adjust the financials. ठीक है. The structure is kind of very complex, people will not be able to understand it. Internal controls are deficient. So these are all basically, and attitude rationalization. See, known history of violation of security law. Past में ऐसा management has done it. They are not worried about consequences. We are experienced. Past में we already violated such laws. So we are trying to show good profit. We are not concerned about. See, when you are worried about the actions, you will not do it. But when you are not worried about action, you will do it. ठीक है. Management want to maintain the higher prices. That's the reason they are doing it. Then low morale among senior management. Acha. Tax motivated reason, they're trying to show less profit, higher profit. So these are basically attitude or rationalization. So this was question on risk factor relating to fraudulent financial reporting. Next question is risk factor relating to misappropriation of asset. Why employee will misappropriate? What is incentive or pressure? Personal financial obligation. आपकी employer के साथ बनती नहीं है. You are not basically in good terms with employer. That's why you're doing frauds. Opportunity, certain characteristics. Asset is very small, तो उसके कारण it can be easily stolen. So large amount of cash in hand, inventory are small, easily convertible asset. So that is basically one thing. Second, inadequate internal control. Inadequate internal controls are there. That's why employees are able to steal it. ठीक है. Attitude rationalization, this is सब करते हैं. I deserve to live better. Management themselves don't care. They only have not put efficient internal control. So they want us to do theft. So that is attitude rationalization. Okay, moving ahead. Question number 18. Okay, in a question 18, year end pay. Year end pay, there is some 60 lakh rupee expense put. Telling that they took consultancy 5 lakh per month, कुछ भी amount pay नहीं हुआ है, nothing is paid. So there's just an entry that expense of 60 lakh book, consultation expense, consultancy charges. Now it looks it's not a genuine thing, because when you asked what consultancy you took, sir, general consultancy throughout the year. So 60 lakh rupees you're paying general consultancy throughout the year, doesn't look proper. So this is basically a kind of looking like a fraud over here. So fraudulent financial reporting is there. So what you should do, if either you withdraw from engagement or you give a modified opinion. Acha, plus section 143.12 plus Caro clause 11 is also on fraud. Okay, this was SA 240 going to 250. This was SA 240 going to 250, 250, 60, 65 and 299. This 4 we do, then we take a break. Okay, consideration of laws and regulation in audit of financial statement. We know there are so many laws and regulations are there. Management is responsible for complying with all that laws and regulation. Auditor will come and check whether the laws and regulations are complied or not. But an audit cannot be expected to detect all the non-compliances of laws and regulation. All नहीं हो सकता. अच्छा, next, this is important. Indicators that non-compliance may have occurred. अच्छा, if there's an investigation by regulatory department, it's an indicator non-compliance may have occurred. अच्छा, payment for unspecified services to consultant. You paid money to consultant, but किसके लिए? Unspecified services. You're trying to hide something. You might have violated some law. You're now taking help. Commission paid to agent beyond the normal rate. Purchase price above the normal rates. Unusual payments in cash are there. Unusual payment for legal or retainer fees to lawyers, chartered accountant is there. You have a lot of transaction with tax haven country. I'm not telling there is a non-compliance, but वहाँ पे there may be a non-compliance. Okay, goods coming from one country but payment done to some other country. Payments are done without proper documentation. Okay, you don't have a proper audit trail. Supporting documents are not available. Unauthorized transactions are there. Adverse media comment. Media mein things are coming that this company is doing some fraud wala thing, or they are not complying certain laws. So these are indicators of non-compliance. Acha, now management is responsible for complying with all the laws and regulations. So what does management do for it? Question is, what does management do for it? So there are certain policies, procedure that help management. If question comes, which are that policy procedure which help management in prevention, detection of non-compliance of laws and regulation? One, the management will keep on monitoring the legal requirement. Okay, they will try to put good system of internal controls. They will establish a code of conduct for the employees. They'll give training. They'll monitor that everybody follows the code of conduct. Okay, they engage legal advisors that help them in monitoring legal requirements, and they maintain a register of significant laws and regulations. So this is what management does. Policies, procedure which management can follow. Now, what is your responsibility? I told you auditor cannot be held responsible for prevention, detection of non-compliance of all laws and regulation. Why? Reason. There are many laws and regulation, and there are laws which are relating to operating aspect we don't know only. Auditor doesn't know Air, Water, Pollution Act. Okay, sometimes non-compliance might be in nature of a fraud, kind of hidden. And sometimes whether it's a non-compliance or not, it's a dicey issue to be decided by court of law. What does this essay say? This essay says your responsibility is divided in two parts. One, laws and regulation that have a direct effect on amounts and disclosure in financial statement, and laws and regulation which do not have a direct effect on amounts and disclosure in financial statement. Achha, for the laws which have a direct effect on amounts and disclosure, you need to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence about its compliance. Achha, for laws and regulation which have a direct effect on amount and disclosure in financial statement, you know about that law. You obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence about its compliance. Achha, for laws which do not have a direct effect on amounts and disclosure in financial, like operational laws, we don't know it. I cannot tell you to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence. For the second category, you need to perform specified audit procedure which will help you identify instances of non-compliance. अच्छा, तो पहले वाले में you have to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence about compliance. For the second one, you need to perform specified audit procedure which will help you to identify instances of non-compliance. Now, sir, which are the specified audit procedure? So, two specified audit procedure. One, inquire with the management. I know you don't know about Air, Water, Pollution Act, but can you ask, sir, did you got any notice from Pollution Control Board? वो तो कर सकते हो ना, inquire with management. If they say yes, see the notice, see the reply, they inspect the correspondence with the licensing authority or the regulatory body. So for laws which do not have a direct effect on amount disclosure, you are required to perform specified audit procedure which helps you to identify instances of non-compliances. अच्छा, now when a non-compliance is identified, अब non-compliance मिल गया तो क्या करूं? Okay, so try to understand the non-compliance. What? अच्छा, under what circumstances did it happen, and because of that what all items will be affected. To understand the nature of act, circumstances, possible effect. And about this non-compliance, you report to the management, yes. To the users, you need to report if it's not properly reflected in financial statement. So if it has a material effect and it is not properly reflected in financial statement, then you tell it to the users. To regulatory body, you will tell about the non-compliance only if it is required by statute. And generally we withdraw from engagement when there are material problems, but suppose there's a non-compliance of law, management doesn't take action, you may withdraw even if the non-compliance is immaterial. The law regulation they're not following, you may withdraw even if non-compliance is not material. Okay, check question number 2 over here. Okay, you are verifying the employee records, you found majority is child labor. Majority is child labor. On questioning management, they're telling, sir, you don't check that other laws. Now, you know, for other laws, we have to, for other laws also, what we need to do, we need to perform specified audit procedure, which helps us to identify instances of non-compliance. And here, already non-compliance have been identified. And other laws are not complied, uske liye penalties, etc. come. Because of that penalties not being provided in books, the financial statements will be materially misstated. The management telling that we should not look into other laws, that is wrong. Over here, if provision for penalty is not done, you're required to give a modified report. Okay, question number 3. See, CA Jazz is a CFO of the company. CA Jazz is a CFO of the company. Acha. Now, question over here is, CA Jazz wants to implement policies, procedure that can help him in prevention, detection of non-compliance. Acha. So, what are the policies, procedure which management can put in? वो CFO है ना, तो management can put in. So, this is question from that management wala angle. Clear? Okay, next, what are the possible areas which you have to look out for forming when whether your suspicion has some basis to further inquire? Means indicators of non-compliance is the question asked. Indicators of non-compliance is the question asked. ठीक है. CA Abhinandan is the auditor of KM. During the audit, you become aware of information about an instance of non-compliance or a suspected non-compliance. Okay, you found some non-compliance, what you need to do? Obtain understanding of that, circumstances in which it happened, and what can go wrong, the possible impact. Okay, this is what you need to do. Plus, you need to inform to the management, inform to the users if it's not properly reflected in financial statements, and inform to regulatory body if required by statute. This was SA250 going to SA260. Going to SA260. Okay, SA260, communication of audit matter to those charged with governance. Okay, the communication of audit matters. Now, TCWG are not interested in small matter. TCWG are interested in big matters. Always something big will be communicated under SA260. It talks about communication with TCWG. Okay. Now, why this communication is important? Why? The effective two-way communication is important. Q. The auditor and TCWG will be able to understand the matters related to audit. It will help the auditor in obtaining from TCWG the information relevant to audit, and it will help TCWG in fulfilling their responsibility of oversight of financial reporting process. Okay. Now, this standard talks about communication of audit matters to those charged with governance. Now, question आता है, whom to communicate, what to communicate, how to communicate. Whom to communicate, what to communicate, how to communicate. अच्छा, whom is a relevant person. So, should I communicate to entire board of director? Should I communicate to audit committee? Should I communicate to only one of the director? That is basically dependent on you. The auditor shall determine the appropriate person with whom to communicate. As a subgroup माने individual director or a committee. So whether I should communicate to a subgroup, तो उसके लिए I need to see the respective responsibility of subgroup, the nature of the matter, the relevant legal or regulatory requirement, and whether subgroup has the authority to take action. And if you have communicated something to subgroup, whether you should also communicate to the entire governing body, that is board of director, that is also you need to decide. Acha, when all of TCWG are involved in managing, now see, whenever any issue comes up, I never go directly to TCWG. I would have first communicated to management. Acha, now suppose whoever were there in management, those who were with executive conduct of business is management, those who have executive responsibility, conduct wale is management, and overseeing wale, providing direction wale, they are TCWG. But imagine if the same people are there in TCWG. It was a partnership firm, the partners give strategic direction, they are TCWG, and they only are implementing, they are management also. So if same all of the people who were there in management, they all are same in TCWG, so no need to communicate again to them as TCWG because you already communicated to them as management. So when all of TCWG were involved in managing and you already communicated to them first, and this SSAs you communicate to TCWG, all are same, no need to communicate again. The important is matters to be communicated. To whom to communicate then? Now what to communicate? What to communicate? They say 4 things. 1. Auditor's responsibility. Auditor ka responsibility. 2nd, plan, scope and timing of your audit. 3rd, significant findings from the audit. And 4th hai your independence, which is only for listed entity. Acha, now, so auditor's responsibility understandable, plan, scope and timing is understandable. Now, significant findings. Isme there are 2 things. 1, significant difficulties which you faced, and number 2 is significant matters. Achha, the 1 is significant difficulties which auditor faced, like delays by management, they are not providing information, or unavailability of the person with whom you wanted to meet, very less time they give you to complete the audit, or unavailability of expected information, or they put some restriction on you, or management's unwillingness. You ask them, sir, whether you are going concern or not, they are not making assessment only. See, whether entities are going concern or not, management has to make an assessment. Auditor will come and evaluate. They are not making only. So these are significant difficulties which you faced. If question comes, significant difficulties, this is the answer. Achha, second one is significant matter. Significant matter which came up during the audit, you have discussed with the management also, but they're not resolving. The significant matter coming up, I discussed with management, they're not resolving. So as per this essay, I have to communicate to TCWG also. Acha, so like significant event or transaction that occurred, concerns about management consultation with other accountants, significant matter on which we have a disagreement with management, discussion regarding some accounting policies being followed by them, some discussion regarding our fees, bees, etc. Business condition related thing like plans, strategies, uske related some risk is coming up. So this is significant matters which we have discussed with management, but they are not able to resolve it. So we also communicate to TCWG. Did you understand? Acha. Plus we also tell about the written representations which we want from them. So we'll communicate to TCWG the written represents which we want from them. Now, 4th one is auditor's independence. This is only for the listed entity. So in a listed entity, you make a statement. You make a statement that the entire team have complied with the relevant ethical requirement, including independence, and we have considered all relationship which have a bearing on independence, and we have taken the related safeguard. Okay, if at all one of our articles' father was a director in your company, we have not sent that article for your audit. Okay. So whom to communicate then? What to communicate? Now how? How to communicate? They are telling your significant findings, difficulties as well as significant matters. Usme 2 things, as well as the independence. That is point number 3 and 4. They are to be basically in writing. So can I say point 1 and 2, auditor's responsibility, plan, scope and timing, that can be oral, but generally they will be a part of your letter of engagement. And to avoid this confusion, the letter of engagement can only tell what to communicate, whom to communicate, how to communicate. Lastly, do your documentation. And just remember, communication between auditor and TCWG is not a substitute for your modified report. You communicated to TCWG doesn't mean now you give a clean report. Usse koi lena dena hi nahi hai. If financials are not showing a true and fair view, you're required to give a modified report. Okay, check over here. Question is, your guidance on matter which are considered as significant difficulties. I told you one is significant difficulties, second is significant matter which came up, we discussed with the management and they were not resolved. So ye difficulties pucha hai, not the matters. Okay. Second, they're telling clear communication of auditor's responsibility, plan, scope, and timing. Basically helps in establishing two-way communication. Mention the matters whose discussion may contribute to effective two-way communication. Which matters we discuss so that effective two-way communication happens? First, discuss the purpose, discuss the form, discuss the person. Okay, auditor's expectation that yeah, we need it two-way, and the process of taking action. If I tell to you how you need to report, if you tell to me how I need to report, that all is basically to be told first so that we can understand, so that we can have effective two-way communication. Third one is fine. This was essay 260 going to 265. 265, 299, two more, then we take break. Okay, 265 is telling communication of deficiencies in internal control to those charged with governance and management. Now see, 260 we communicate any matter, but it has to be significant because 260 talks about communicating only with TCWG. 265 talks about communicating with TCWG as well as management. But here they talk about only one thing, deficiencies in internal control. If it's a normal deficiency, I communicate with management. If it's a significant deficiency, I'll communicate with TCWG. Okay, so first of all, what do you mean by a deficiency in internal control? See, control ka purpose kya hai? The purpose of control is to ensure that the frauds or errors are prevented, detected, and corrected on a timely basis. If the control cannot do that, it's deficient. So control, when do I say there's a deficiency? The control is designed, implemented, operated. The control is designed, implemented, operated in a manner it's unable to prevent, detect, or correct the misstatements on a timely basis. Or a control which is required to correct, prevent, detect, and correct the misstatement on timely basis is missing only. So control hai but kaam nahi kar raha hai, control hai hi nahi. Both are basically a deficiency in internal control. Achha sir, what's a significant deficiency in internal control? We understood deficiency. What is a significant deficiency in internal control? It is also a deficiency in internal control which, in auditor's professional judgment, merits the attention of TCWG. If I have to draw attention of TCWG, it's a significant deficiency. Clear? Okay. So this essay says we need to communicate the deficiencies in internal control on a timely basis. If it's a normal deficiency, you communicate to management. If it's a significant deficiency, we communicate in writing. First to management, then to TCWG. Okay, you communicate to appropriate level of management. In writing, significant deficiency. Achha, in writing only for A point. For B point, in writing word is not there. Other deficiency, the normal deficiency I communicate, it can be orally also. Significant, I'll communicate in writing, first to management, then to TCWG. Fine. And whenever you're communicating, give a description of deficiency, explain the potential effect. To give description of deficiency, explain the potential effect, and you need to give sufficient information to TCWG and management so that they're able to understand the context of your communication. Don't tell just the deficiency, uski possible effect, sufficient other details so that they're able to understand the context of your communication. Okay, now to decide whether significant deficiency is identified. Okay, whether it's a significant deficiency or not, you're deciding. Don't decide yourself, discuss it with the appropriate level of management and then decide whether it's a significant deficiency or not. So you need to discuss the relevant fact with the appropriate level of management. Achha, whenever I'm communicating the significant deficiency, okay, so should I also give recommendation for how to rectify it? So recommendation dena zaruri. Okay, should I quantify the effect? Kitni effect aayegi? Okay, so what you need to do, you don't have to quantify the effect. You can tell this areas will be affected. No need to quantify the effect. You may give suggestions for remedial action. No need to quantify. You may give suggestions for remedial action. Okay, coming to question number 1, November 20. Now, for determining whether it's a significant deficiency or not, which matters are to be considered? Okay, for determining whether it's a significant deficiency or not, which matters do you consider? The one, the likelihood of deficiency leading to material misstatement in future. इसके कारण future में there will be a big material misstatement coming, it's a significant deficiency. The matters to be considered for deciding whether it's a significant deficiency. Okay, susceptibility of fraud or loss because of it. The subjectivity or complexity involved in determining the estimated amount because of it. Financial statement का amount exposed to the deficiency. Because of this deficiency, ये 1000 crore के assets are being affected. Financial statement amount. ये volume of activity affected, exposed. ये amount, ये volume of activity. Okay. The controls which are getting affected, the importance of controls to the financial reporting process, and because of this deficiency, is it affecting the overall IT environment ke control or general controls? What is being affected? Frequency of exceptions detected. Acha, because of this, what is happening is the problems coming up, how many times they are coming up, that all, and interaction of this deficiency with other deficiency. So this is basically your matters considered in determining a significant deficiency. Now, next question, they are telling indicators of significant deficiency. Now, see, two things are different. One is matters to be considered in determining significant deficiency, and this one is basically indicators of significant deficiency. Which are the indicators? So, whenever your overall control environment is ineffective, the overall control environment is ineffective, like management interested transactions not being appropriately scrutinized, any significant deficiencies previously communicated, they are not taking any remedial actions. So this is environment is weak. So that's a significant deficiency. Indicators of a significant deficiency. Achha, absence of a risk assessment process within the entity. Every entity should have their own risk assessment process. Achha, not for identifying frauds error, for identifying business risk. So every entity should have a risk assessment process for identifying business risk. If they don't have it, it's a significant deficiency. Achha, they have, but they don't have it proper. Ineffective entities risk assessment process. Yahan pe tha absence. Next, if there's a significant risky area, but uske liye they are not taking any action, ineffective response to identified significant risk, so that's again significant risky area where there are more chance of fraud and error, but they're still not taking any action. So wahan pe we say there's a significant deficiency in control. Acha, management misstatement detected by audit procedure, but controls are not able to detect. A very simple fraud or error, controls are not able to detect, I am able to detect, so wo controls are very weak, significant deficiency. Okay, disclosure of prior period item. Disclosure of frauds and error as a prior period item. If your system is showing frauds or error as a prior period item, the system is very deficient. Controls are very deficient, and management not able to oversee the financial reporting process properly. So TCWG not able to see financials reporting process properly, it's a significant deficiency. The earlier one was matters to be considered in determining significant deficiency. And these are indicators. ऐसा है तो ये significant deficiency है. Fine. Question number 4. Question 4 is about letter of weakness. What point you should keep in mind? Acha, see. One, whatever deficiency in internal control I find out, I have to communicate. I communicate by way of a letter. This is called as a letter of weakness. This is called as a letter of weakness. Now, what are the important points regarding letter of weakness? It lists down only the weakness. You may offer suggestion for improvement. Achha, tell that these are the weaknesses came when we are doing an audit. Our objective was not to report on your controls. Our objective was just to report on financial statement. For that, we were checking your controls. Our objective was not to report on controls. This will serve as a valuable reference document for management. They can also basically rectify their deficiencies which are there. And future में, if anything, case of negligence is brought against us, we can say that no, sir, see, we have already told management to rectify the deficiencies. It will minimize the legal liability for auditor. This was SA 265. last standard before break 299. Are you enjoying? I'm telling you, we are doing an in-depth revision covering entire theory and all important questions which have been marked in our material. Okay, essay 299, joint audit of financial statement. We know when more than one auditors are appointed, we call it as joint auditor, but one is a main auditor, there's a branch auditor, they are not joint auditor. Two or more main auditor, that's joint auditor. Now this standard tells whenever we have a joint auditor, so audit planning, identifying risky area, allocation of work. So planning के लिए the engagement partner and the key team members, the engagement partner as well as the key team members of each of the joint auditors should come together for planning. They will establish a jointly overall audit strategy. And prior to commencement of audit, the joint auditor shall discuss and develop a joint audit plan. Acha. Now, in developing joint audit plan, which factors do they consider? This is important. Okay, so in developing a joint audit plan, they will consider following things. This is basically the points relating to audit strategy. Remember, first comes strategy, then comes a detailed plan. In developing a joint audit plan, they will consider what? They will identify the division of audit areas, the common control areas. So they will be able to define the scope of each of them. You will do this will be the common area, kind of that one. Second, they will ascertain the reporting objective. What is the reporting objective? When we have to meet the TCWG, when we have to give reports to them. So based on that, they're able to plan the timing of audit and nature of communication required. Third, they will try to see the factors which will be significant in directing the engagement team members' effort. Fourth, they will consider the result of preliminary engagement activity. And fifth, they will try to determine the nature, timing, extent of resources which will be required. So these 5 points are nothing but related to audit strategy. Based on strategy, the plan is built. Achha, so in developing a joint audit plan, the joint auditors shall consider these 5 factors. Okay. At this stage, they will be trying to identify the risk of material misstatement needs to be considered by each one of them. Achha, they should document the nature, timing, extent of procedure for common areas. Common areas, how they are going to check. Individual areas, responsibility will be there alone. Common area mein responsibility will be for each one of them. Achha, now over here, whether we have every joint auditor sending a letter of engagement to management, every joint auditor will send a letter of engagement to management. Answer is no. There will be a common letter of engagement. Management will give it to joint auditors. They will sign. So they have to obtain a common letter of engagement on management's letterhead, and a common representation letter also will be there. And the work, how they are divided, has to be basically documented. Okay. Now, each joint auditor is responsible only for the work allocated to him, but for the following areas, the responsibility will be joint and several. For which areas responsibility is joint and several? 6 matters. Work not divided. Decision taken by all joint auditor regarding that planning. वो पहले plan किया था ना सबने. Under the planning in respect of common areas. Planning in respect of common areas. It's a matter coming to one joint auditor, it's brought to notice of other joint auditor, and then they took a collective decision. So all are responsible. Acha, a financial statement meeting the requirement of statute, presentation disclosures as per the applicable financial reporting framework, and audit report complying with the legal requirement. This, all 6 ke liye, they are all jointly and severally responsible. Acha, now, conclusion. If they are able to arrive at a common conclusion, like everybody says, okay, we give clean, so one report everybody will sign. But if they are not able to arrive at a consensus, then if there's a disagreement, what to do? Everybody is entitled to give their own separate opinion. Out of 3, 2 wants to give clean, they both can merge their audit report, wo chalega. But you can give your own separate report, you're not bound by majority. And if at all the other joint auditor has given a separate opinion, like you gave clean, other has given a modified. So in your other matter paragraph, you need to write down that the other joint auditor has given a separate opinion, and basically that needs to be written in your other matter paragraph. Now, you are entitled to assume that everybody has done their work properly. Don't doubt others' work because you are not responsible for their work. Fine, this is okay. This was your SA 299. Any doubts? Anybody till now? We did SA 200 to SA 299. 200 series is over. After the break, we will do 300 series. After the break, we are going to do 300 ka series. Okay, so we take a break 15 minutes. And we'll be back at 10:22 p.m. We'll be back at 10:22 p.m. Enjoy your break. And anything you want to ask, write it down in the chat box. I'll be happy to help. Okay, hi, welcome back. Give me high five, thumbs up. We finished SA 200 series and now we need to finish up SA 300 series. 4 standards, 300, 315, 320, 330. Yeah, 4 standards, 300, 315, 320 and 330. This is to be done today. Then we'll put an end to today's session. Tomorrow morning 7 o'clock again we'll start. I repeat, tomorrow morning 7 o'clock again we'll start, and tomorrow's target will be, we need to finish up first half May, that is morning slot May, the essays. All your essays will get over. Evening slot I'll finish your other standards, SAE, SRE, SRS as well as the professional ethics. And Monday evening I'll take all the remaining chapters. Chalo, let's begin. We start with SA 300, which is on audit planning. We know that we need to plan and perform the audit so that the audit is completed on a timely basis and an effective manner. It's timely basis, effective manner. Okay, what should plan cover? That's your inter question. Benefits of planning is also inter question. What should plan cover? Benefits of planning, I'm leaving it, it's okay. Now, nature and extent of planning. How much planning you need? Nature and extent of planning, it depends on one, size and complexity of auditee. If client is huge, we need more planning. Client is a small one, we need less planning. Second, your past experience, your expertise. And third, the change in circumstances. If circumstances change, the plan needs to be altered. Now, requirements, first of all, you need to involve your key team members in planning. The engagement partner himself should not do the entire planning. He should involve key team members. Now, preliminary engagement activity. Before you start planning, you need to check out these 3 preliminary engagement activities have been satisfied. If this preliminary engagement activity mein problem comes, withdraw without starting your planning only. So, preliminary engagement activity, this is to be done at beginning only. 3 things. One, whether the SA 220 policies for continuation of client have been followed or not. तो पहले वो check करो whether the policy for continuation of client is followed or not. Same way, whether you'll be able to complete the entire assignment following the ethical requirements including independence, and see the terms of engagement. The terms of engagement might need some extra checking from your side, so uske liye also you need to plan. So one, try to see the policy for continuation of client is being followed. 2, whether you'll be able to complete the assignment following ethical requirement including independence, and third one is terms of engagement. Now planning starts. Under planning, first we have the audit strategy, then comes your detailed audit plan. So develop an audit strategy that sets out scope, timing, direction of audit, and it guides in development of overall audit plan. Now the strategy will assist you. Now see, strategy is still deciding the nature, timing, extent of resources required. Repeat. Nature, timing, extent of resources required. The strategy assists in what? 1. Employment of qualitative resources. So which type of resources will need? So kaise experienced team members will need? Allocation of quantity, number of resources. How many resources will need? Timing, when will need those resources? The employment of qualitative resources, which type of resources will need? Allocation of quantity, how many resources will need? Timing, when will need it, and how we are going to manage them. Management of those resources, how that resources will be managed, directed, supervised. So this is basically the strategy assists in following thing. Did you understand this? Now, in establishing a strategy, what all do we consider? Then establishing overall strategy, we consider 1. You try to identify the characteristic of the engagement. So we try to understand the scope. What all we need to cover, number of branches, the number of business segments which we have to audit, whether we can rely on previous years checking of control or not, the use of audit evidence obtained in previous period. So we try to understand the scope. Okay. Second, we try to understand the reporting objective and the communications which will be required. Okay, so we try to understand reporting objective. Why? So if I know I have to meet management every quarterly basis and I have to give report, I need to check in that way. So we need to plan the timing of audit accordingly. Okay, the entity's timetable for reporting, whether they need directly final or interim stage, may they need the meetings with the management TCWG. The discussion with management TCWG regarding the expected type and timing. The discussion with management regarding expected communication on status of audit work which we need to do. So if I have to give communication on audit of status of my audit work, I have to do my audit accordingly. So this is basically, one, you try to understand your scope. Second, you try to understand your reporting objective. Third, you try to consider the factors which will be important which will be significant in directing your team members' effort. Fourth, you see the results of preliminary engagement activity. And fifth, you determine the nature, timing, extent of resources which are required. This is strategy. So in developing strategy, what all do you consider? And strategy assist you in what thing? So that was above answer. Okay, now comes your detailed plan. See, in your detailed plan, the nature, timing, extent of your audit procedures come. The nature, timing, extent of planned risk assessment procedure. How are you going to identify risky area? Nature, timing, extent of further audit procedure for each and every item at an assertion level. Other audit procedures to ensure that the audit complies with SA. As well as nature, timing, extent of direction, supervision and review. How you are going to do the direction, supervision, review, that also will be included. Okay, so which procedures to be done, when to be done, who will do it, how we will do it, who will review it, when he will review it, that all is a part of detailed plan. So strategy ends at determining nature, timing, extent of resources required. Now what that resources will do, how they will do, that all comes in your detailed plan. Acha. Now the nature, timing, extent of direction, supervision, review. How much direction, supervision, review required depends on certain factor. One, the size and complexity of entity, the area of audit, risk involved, and how are your team member. If team members are good, you need less direction, less supervision, less review. Team members not good, you need more direction, more supervision, more. Acha, as and when your audit progresses, you might be required to revise your plan. So there may be a revision in your overall audit strategy as well as the overall audit plan. It can be due to, this line is important, as a result of unexpected event, change in condition, or the evidence is obtained. The unexpected event, change in condition, or evidence is obtained, you might be required to modify your plan. Do your documentation, you document the strategy, you document the plan, and you document any changes which you are doing over there. Fine. Now, additional consideration for initial audit engagement. Okay, if you are doing audit for the first time, so rather than in basically preliminary engagement activity, it will not be the policy for continuation of client, it will be the policy for acceptance of client. And if it's basically a first time audit, last time someone else was auditor, you need to communicate with the previous auditor. That also needs to be considered. Now, what do you mean by the word audit program? Program in simple words is a detailed plan. Program in simple words is what? Detailed plan. The program is commonly prepared to allocate work to the team members, which will include a list of procedures to be done, instruction to be followed by the member, and it also says that duration. Okay, so you need to do this procedure at this point of time, you need to complete it in this many days. वो आ गया आपका audit program. It's a detailed plan. It's nothing but a detailed plan of applying the audit procedures in the given circumstances with the instruction for appropriate technique which are to be used for accomplishing your objective. Acha, can I have a common audit plan for all my clients? Answer is no. So which are the important matters which needs to be considered whenever I am framing an audit program? Detailed plan. So जब आप audit program बना रहे हो, what all you need to consider? One, the nature of business. Second, I need to consider the overall plan. See, program cannot be violative of the plan. Plan says one thing, program says other thing. No. So first, modify the plan. Based on that, you can have a program. So always you need to ensure the program is within the range of plan. Plus, I'll try to see the system of internal control accounting procedure. The program should be based on one, your nature of business, overall plan, system of internal controls, size of organization, structure of entity. So size कैसा है, structure कैसा है, all that things. Information as regard to the organization. What data I have about the organization, client's history, business, uska purpose, the nature of engagement, etc. and accounting and management policies. So depending on all this, I'll be developing my audit program. I will developing my audit program. Acha, now if you are basically appointed as auditor for the first time, develop your audit program in 3 stages. First, a broad outline should be drawn. Then you check accounting system, internal control system, and based on that you modify it. After accounting system, internal control system are reviewed, you modify it. जहाँ पे control deficiency मिला, वहाँ पे you have to check more to modify your audit program accordingly. And third, after detailed checking is over, you found there are some areas where I need to do extra checking. Again, you modify your audit program accordingly. The 3 stages may do if you're doing it for the first time. Now this question important, circumstances wherein the audit program would have been altered. Circumstances where audit program would have to be altered. 1. When volume has increased significantly. Significant changes in organization has happened, so I need to change my audit program also. Second, internal control procedures were not as effective as assumed. So what you thought they are not as effective, so now I need to check more. The audit program needs to be modified. There's an extraordinary increase in debtors and stock, and there's some suspicion, there's some doubt created. I need to check extra, so accordingly my audit program needs to be modified. So circumstances where you need to modify audit program important. Okay, moving ahead, question number 3. Now tell me, developing overall audit strategy, detailed audit plan is a responsibility of auditor. Management nahi, it is a responsibility of auditor. यहाँ पे you basically told the management guy to do it. It's wrong, you need to do it. The approach of W was wrong. He should have prepared the overall audit strategy, detailed audit procedure. ठीक है, next. अच्छा, now see this. Planning includes need to consider certain matter. Planning includes need to consider certain matter prior to your identification of risky area. So before you identify risky area, you need to consider certain matters. Which are those matter? Achha, so before you identify risky area, you need to consider certain matters while planning. Which are those? So 1, how you are going to identify risky area. A risky area identify hua, based on that plan will change. Okay. But before you identify risky area, how you are going to identify risky area? The analytical procedures to be applied as a risk assessment procedure to identify risky area. The general understanding, how will I obtain understanding about legal regulatory framework? Determination of materiality, whether I'll need expert or not. How will I do other risk assessment procedure? Before identifying risky area, plan needs to consider certain matters. That matters will be how we are going to identify risky areas. Okay, question number 5. What factors do you consider in development of overall audit plan? Now see, in your essay 299, for developing a joint plan, the auditor shall consider following, और उसमें 5 points of strategy were written. The scope, the objective, the significant matters where a team member's effort is more required, preliminary engagement activity, nature, timing, extent of resources required. So in developing a joint audit plan, what all do you consider? The points of strategy. अच्छा, तो यहाँ पे भी in developing overall audit plan, what do you consider? Actually answer will be of that strategy के 5 points, but here they have given it differently. Now that was a bare text. This is as per information and application material. I told you application explanatory material. So answer, sir, what do we do? Write what they write. The question is what factors are considered for overall audit plan? This answer. If question is what factors are considered for developing a joint audit plan, then you write the 5 points related to strategy which was written in essay 299. ठीक है. So in developing an overall audit plan, what do we consider? 1, the terms of engagement, how are the communications to be done, legal requirement, the accounting policies adopted, significant areas कौन से हैं, whether we can rely on accounting system, internal control system, how much we can rely. Rotation, last time we checked this, so this time we have to check a different thing that we consider while planning. Allocation of work, involvement of other auditors. So this is basically whether I can rely on internal auditor. Based on that, I need to do planning. Okay, going to illustration number 6. Acha, illustration number 6 is draft a suitable audit program. Whenever they ask you draft a suitable audit program, they're just telling how you are going to check it. And here the point is about plant and machinery. So how we are going to check plant and machinery? One, internal control relating to it. Number two, I'll check the asset register maintained. I'll do a physical verification. Okay. I'll try to see the code register for the code assigned to each of the plant and machinery. Then spare part register, asset disposal register, movement register when it's moved from one place to another. Maintenance, how it is done. R&D, obsolescence. So these are the points. See, whenever a question comes about write down an audit program, don't fear. It's just how you are going to check that item. Okay, question number 7. As an auditor of a garment manufacturing company, and now they've ventured into online shopping. Okay, garment manufacturing, now they've started online shopping. Which factors are considered in developing audit strategy? Okay, so in establishing strategy, you consider that 5 things, yaad aaya? The objective, the scope, that all things, that you can write down. The general factors which I consider is objective, theek hai. The preliminary judgment as to materiality, inherent risk, then the degree to which team should carry out further assessment of controls for reducing substantive test. Main point relating to planning, controlling the audit. So this is general factors. I can write that 5 points related to strategy also. In establishing strategy, the auditor shall. And that 5 points were written, I can write that also. But now this question, they are stating that we are starting an online venture. So pehle you are not doing online, now you are doing online. Online is related to basically IT. App aa jayega, something like that. Okay, so now for that, what do you see? Special factors for online. Special factors for online, these are the points which are basically how the transaction processing happens in online. Okay, so you need to obtain understanding. You need to obtain understanding about the class of transaction which are significant, the procedures by which the transactions are initiated, recorded, processed in the financial statement, reported in financial statement, the related accounting records or supporting documents which are available, how system captures events or transaction other than events and condition other than the transaction. See, every system will capture transaction, but events and conditions which are significant, how are they basically covered? Controls relating to journal entries, what are they? So these are specific relating to online shopping. These are points related to IT, how the transaction processing takes place. And in your essay 315, under the components of internal control has 5 components. This is one of it, the third one. The process relating to the financial reporting. Procedure relating to financial reporting. Okay, so one was general factors. I can write down that 5 points which were there in strategy. And then there was special factors for online shopping, which is all related to IT. Wahan pe it's how the transaction processing takes place. That points. Okay, question number 8. You are required to draw audit program. It's simple. Basically, how you are going to check it. It's a cinema. So uske revenues, uske expenditure, that points are given. It's fine. Nothing to be taught over there. This was SA 300 going to 315. This was your SA 300 going to 315. Pay attention. Any doubts are there, feel free to ask. I have lots of water. Okay, SA 315, identifying and assessing the risk of material misstatement through understanding the entity, environment, internal control. Now see, SA 240 also we identified risky area. Here also we are trying to identify risky area. But SA 240 we identified risky area only for fraud. The SA 240 was specifically for fraud. 315 is general, whether fraud or error. Acha, SA 240 basically it was completely regarding fraud. We identify risky area, we check them in detail, and if I find a fraud, now what to do? So responses to a fraud were also covered over there. Identify karo risky area, and then how do you check it? Here 315 is just identifying risky area, whether due to fraud or error. 330 talks about the responses. 330 talks about responses. So this is general standard talking about fraud and error both. Much of the content of 315 you will feel that it's similar to SA 240. Okay. The objective is to identify and assess the risk of material misstatement. And we know whenever I identify risky area, it may affect many items, it may affect one item. So basically either it may be at a financial statement level or at an assertion level. To identify and assess the risk of material misstatement, whether due to fraud or error, at a financial statement level or assertion level. And this standard says, how do I identify risk area? By understanding the entity, environment, internal control. Through understanding entity, environment, internal control. And this will provide a basis for you. So once you are able to identify risk area, you are able to design your procedures accordingly. It would provide a basis for designing and implementing your responses, and this will help the auditor to reduce the audit risk to acceptably lower level. Okay? Okay. Now, definition of internal control is fine. Now, going to the risk assessment procedures definition. What is a risk assessment procedure? Procedures to identify risky area. Achha, this standard, we identify risky area by understanding entity, environment, internal control. So whatever procedures you are doing for understanding entity, environment, internal control, that will be your risk assessment procedure. Repeat. Risk assessment procedure is procedures to identify risky area. This standard, we are trying to identify risky area by understanding entity, environment, internal control. So whatever procedures you do for obtaining understanding of entity, environment, internal control, that will be your risk assessment procedure. The procedures performed to obtain understanding of entity, environment, internal control so as to identify and assess the risk of material misstatement, whether due to fraud or error, at a financial statement level or at an assertion level. Now the word is significant risk. Now see, there's a difference between the word significant deficiency and significant risk. Significant deficiency was a deficiency in internal control, which in auditor's professional judgment needs attention of TCWG. वो significant deficiency था. Significant risk, ये क्या है? It's a identified and assessed risk of material misstatement which requires a special audit consideration where there are more chance of fraud and error. That's a significant risk area. You have to check it in detail. The significant deficiency was a deficiency which I have to bring it to attention of TCWG. Significant risk is a risky area which I have to check in detail. So it's identified, assessed risk of material misstatement which in auditor's judgment needs a special audit consideration. Fine. Now coming to requirement. One, I have to do a risk assessment procedure. Procedure to identify risky area. Okay. This is by understanding entity, environment, internal control. How do I obtain understanding about entity, environment, internal control? How? How do I obtain? One, I can do inquiry from management and others. I can do analytical procedures. I can do some observation inspection. And if I identify risky area, it doesn't mean there is a fraud. Or it doesn't mean there is an error. It is just telling यहाँ पे there can be a fraud or error. ठीक है. This is to find risk-prone areas which are to be looked further. So one, you do risk assessment procedure. Second, you do discussion amongst your team member. Third, the required understanding. So what all understanding about entity, environment, internal control you should have. What all understanding. The one about entity and environment. About entity and environment. So one, you should have an understanding. This essay is all about understanding. We obtain understanding of entity, environment, internal control. We don't check control. This is obtaining understanding. Testing control is coming in your responses. Okay. You obtain understanding about relevant industry, the regulatory framework, applicable financial reporting framework applicable. You try to understand the nature of entity. उसके ownership, उसके operations, उसके investments, how it is structured, उसके accounting policy, objective strategy related to it, and try to also see the financial performance, credit rating agency के reports. So you try to obtain understanding of entity, environment. Now comes internal control. Again, you have to obtain understanding. Now, there are 5 components of internal control. You obtain understanding about the components of internal control. 1. The overall control environment. The overall control environment. Now, you need to obtain understanding of the overall control environment, and uske liye what do you evaluate? The management, how they've created a culture of honesty, ethical behavior, And the strength in control environment, do they provide appropriate foundation for the internal controls to work properly? If environment is strong, the controls will work better. And the control environment includes what? The governance management function. The governance, how is the hierarchy? How management is happening? Are they strict, not strict? Attitude, awareness, actions of TCWG. Attitude, awareness, action. If TCWG themselves follow all rules and regulation, everybody will follow. If they only don't follow, nobody will follow. Okay. And the control environment sets the tone for the organization, influencing the control consciousness amongst the people. So one, you obtain understanding of the control environment. Second, entity ka risk assessment process. I told you every entity should have a risk assessment process for identifying business risk. For business risk. So one, I understand the entity's risk assessment process for identifying business risk. How do they estimate the significance of the risk, the likelihood of their outcome, and how to address those risks? To obtain understanding of entity's risk assessment process. Third, the information system relevant to financial reporting. The overall financial reporting process, how it happens, which are the significant class of transaction, how they are initiated, recorded, processed, coming in financial statement, uske related accounting records, how is the system capturing events and condition, and controls relating to journal entry. I need to obtain understanding of the entire financial reporting system. Fourth, control activities relevant to audit. Now see, control activity. See, one is control objective. The objective is to prevent or detect fraud and error. Objective is to safeguard the asset. तो उसके लिए control activities will be there. So control activities which are relevant to your audit, you need to obtain understanding. And control activities will include one, physical control. Fingerprint is there. So control activity. Segregation of duties. Authorization. Someone approves, then only it can work. Performance review. Your work reviewed by someone else. Information processing, IT related controls are there, controls are put in the system itself. So these are control activities. And as an auditor, I need to obtain understanding how the management keeps on monitoring their control. After certain time, the management might be revising the controls, etc. So how do they monitor the control? I need to obtain understanding. Which are the 5 components of internal control? Control environment, entities risk assessment process, information system relevant to financial reporting, control activity relevant to audit, and monitoring of control. You obtain understanding of it. Okay, so to identify risky area, you did risk assessment procedure, you discussed amongst team member, and you obtain understanding of entity, environment, internal control. Now you are able to identify risky area. Try to see, because of that, one item affected, many item affected. So whether it will be a risk at a financial statement level or a assertion level. And don't just identify risk. Don't just identify risk. You assess the risk, whether it relates more pervasively to financial statement as a whole. So don't just identify the risk. You try to assess it, whether it will relate to many items. Acha. And which all items can go wrong. Relate the risk to what can go wrong at assertion level and the likelihood of misstatement. Okay, misstatement hoga, kitna hoga, uske chances, percentage. That. So don't just identify risk, assess the identified risk, whether it relates more pervasively to the financial statement as a whole. Okay, relate the risk to what can go wrong at an assertion level, each and every item mein what can go wrong, and consider the likelihood of misstatement. Uska possibility and magnitude, both. ठीक है. Next is risks that require a special audit consideration. Risks that require special audit consideration are nothing but a significant risk. Okay, the generally significant risks arise due to non-routine transaction or judgmental matters. Where there is more judgment involved, वहाँ पे significant risk होता है, and non-routine things में. अच्छा, following are always significant risk. Which are always significant risk? Risk due to fraud. If it's a risk of material misstatement due to fraud, it's a significant risk. And something which is not in ordinary course. So transaction with related party which are outside the normal course, they are always significant risk. Acha, to decide whether it's a significant risk or not, we consider following important To decide whether it's a significant risk or not, we consider the following. So in exercising judgment whether the risk is a significant risk or not, we consider at least the following: whether it's a risk of fraud, whether it's a risk related to recent significant economic, accounting or other changes or development which has happened, complexity of transaction, whether significant transaction with related parties are involved, the subjectivity involved in measuring it. अच्छा, if it can be measured properly तो problem, but उसमें subjective judgment है, judgment is more, and whether it involves significant unusual thing, so we consider this point in deciding whether it's a significant risky area. अच्छा, now there are certain risks where substantive procedure alone will not give you sufficient appropriate audit evidence. If I check transaction, nahi, I have to check controls only. Substantive procedure alone will not give you sufficient appropriate audit evidence. Imagine for a bank. For a bank, there are crores of interest key entry. If you check 50, 100 interest entry, you don't get sufficient appropriate audit evidence. Better you check the system which makes the entry for interest. The substantive procedure alone will not give you sufficient appropriate audit evidence. And as and when your audit progresses, the risk assessment might need a revision. If I find something problematic, तो वहाँ पे रिस्क ज़्यादा है, यहाँ पे रिस्क कम है, risk assessment may need a revision. ठीक है. Now let's see the questions over here. SA 315. Okay. Meaning, objective, structure, limitation of internal control. Important over here is meaning and limitation. Okay, the meaning, internal controls are what? Policies, procedure adopted by the management that helps the management in fulfilling their responsibility. Okay, uski objective. Now see, objective mein, the objective of internal control relating to accounting system. Objective of internal control relating to what? Accounting system. Okay, the transactions are executed based on proper authorization. They are promptly recorded. Assets and records are safeguarded from unauthorized access. Assets are verified at reasonable interval. Appropriate action is taken for discrepancy. This is objectives of internal control relating to accounting system. Structure is nothing but basically the control activity. Segregation of duties, authorization, safeguarding of asset, independent checks. This is structure. Is nothing but kind of control activity. Limitation. In spite of you putting a very good internal control system, still there may be a fraud or error. So the thing is, there can be a collusion by employees even though work of A checked by B, A and B came together. वो हो गया. अच्छा, sometimes you don't put a control because cost of putting a control will exceed the benefit. ठीक है. Controls are for usual things. Something unusual happens, I don't have control for that. Person exercising the internal control, he himself may abuse the responsibility or he may himself abuse the authority. And there may be management doing manipulation, management overriding the control. In spite of you putting very good control, still there can be frauds or errors happening. This is due to limitations of internal controls. Okay, moving ahead, question number 3. Okay, question 3. You know, we do inquiries. We inquire with the management, we inquire with TCWG, we do inquiries with outsiders. Okay, inquiries which we do give certain level of evidence. What evidence I get by inquiring with different people? So what information auditor can obtain from inquiries of others within the entities and other employees with different level of authority. Different employees I inquire. What type of information do I get? So when I inquire with TCWG, overall pata chalega. It helps me understand environment. Okay, when I inquire with internal audit people, I understand how are the internal controls. Okay, when I inquire with employee who is initiating, recording complex, unusual transaction, the guy who makes a basically complex, unusual transaction ka entries, I can understand the appropriateness of accounting policies relating to it. Okay, when I inquire with in-house legal counsel, I can understand the litigations which are going on, compliance with laws and regulation. If I inquire with marketing or salesperson, I can understand entity ka marketing strategy, trend, etc. The different people I inquire, I get different type of information. What was that? Question 4 is fine, 5 is fine, 6. 6 examples of IT related risk. What are the IT related risk in internal control? अच्छा, there may be an inaccurate processing of data. आपका सॉफ्टवेयर गलत था तो processing of data is done inaccurately. Okay, IT में one problem is unauthorized access to data. Possibility of IT person getting privileges beyond those required. The main IT guy, he will have privilege, he will have access to everything, even though I don't want to give him. Unauthorized change in master file someone does. Unauthorized change to program someone does. Failure to make changes to your system over a period. The software also needs changes. If you don't do it, तो वहाँ पे risk आ जाएगा. Inappropriate manual intervention. Sometimes power is not there, or sometimes the software is basically not working. So manually you're doing inappropriate manual intervention. Potential loss of data. Power fluctuations, a hard disk crashed. So these are risk related to IT. Clear? Okay, question number 7. Question number 7. Entities risk assessment process. We understood every entity should have a risk assessment process to identify the business risk. Okay. Illuminate the circumstances in which the risk can arise or change. This they are talking about business risk. Illuminate the circumstances, elucidate the circumstances in which risk can arise or change. Business ke risk. Because of change in operating environment, the risk can arise or change. New personnel coming up, new IT system you implemented. Because of your rapid growth, you're trying to grow very fast, some hiccups may come up. New technology, new business model, corporate restructuring, expanding foreign operation, new accounting pronouncements. The risk can arise or change due to following important. But this is business related risk. Acha, what is control environment? What are its elements? What is control environment? Okay, see, control environment means the overall attitude, awareness, actions of directors, management regarding the internal control system and its importance in entity. So overall attitude, awareness of directors, management, and how much importance they give to internal control. If the top level management gives importance to control, the environment will become stronger. If they themselves don't follow control, so again environment becomes weak. Acha, environment is affected by the organization structure, hierarchy, management supervision, and third people. People good hai, they will follow rules and regulation. Now the question over here is, what are its elements? Okay, the elements of internal control include elements of internal control environment. Elements of control environment include how top level management communicates integrity, ethical values, and how they enforce it on employee. Commitment to competence. If at all we always ensure that, the competent person is there for the work. Each job role may we put a competent person only, then the work will be done better. Everybody will follow rules and regulation. Participation by TCWG. Their involvement, they taking actions to ensure everybody follows rules and regulation. Acha, management philosophy, operating style. What is management philosophy, operating style? How do they take the breaches of employee? Punish karte hain, nahi karte hain. If I punish, then everybody will follow rules and regulation. Hierarchy, proper hierarchy ensures everybody follows rules and regulation. Assignment of authority, responsibility. If I am giving you a responsibility, I should also give you authority to perform that work. Then in that case, the things will be done in a proper way. Rules, regulations will be followed. Human resource policy. Whether you give training to employees, promotions are properly done, compensation is properly given, then in that case, everybody will follow rules and regulations. They'll feel happy. The elements of control environment. Communication, enforcement of integrity, ethical values. Commitment to competence. We have only competent people for the jobs. participation by TCWG, management का philosophy, operating style, organizational structure, assignment of authority, responsibility, and human resource policies. This all lead to a control environment के elements. If this all works fine, control environment will become stronger. Fine, moving ahead, question number 10. Question number 10. Okay, now see. What are control objectives you like accounting control system to achieve? Control objectives for accounting control system. Accounting control system, they do accounting of transaction. तो उनका objective क्या होगा? Transactions are properly recorded in a proper account with a proper amount in a proper period. They are adequately supported by documents. So this is basically there. The transactions are recorded, they are real, they are properly valued, they are timely recorded, properly posted, properly classified, disclosed, properly summarized. Clear? Okay, next. What is internal check? What is internal check? What are its objective and aspects to be considered in framing a system of internal check? Now see, internal control system is a broader term. Internal check is a part of it. Under internal check, you have your system running in a manner. You have a system running in a manner that work of one person is checked by another person. No person is allowed to carry out the work from origin till its end. The internal check system implies the organization of overall system. You have an overall system of bookkeeping and arrangement of staff duties. So you have an overall system of bookkeeping as well as the staff duties, how you have arranged in a way that no person can carry out the transaction from origin till its end, and work of one person is checked by another person. It is a part of overall control system. So control, internal control is a bigger term, internal check is a part of it. Clear? Okay, the effectiveness of internal check depends on, okay, the effectiveness of internal, I want work of one person checked by another, no person to be allowed to be carry out work from origin till its end. It depends on division of work, clarity of responsibility, standardization, and last, appraisal. This work, this person's work reviewed by another person. Did you understand? Okay. Next, we have objectives of internal check. What is objective of internal check? To detect fraud and error with ease, to minimize the error possibility of commission of errors or fraud by any staff, because work of one person checked by another, increase the efficiency of staff, to locate actual fraud or error kahan pe hua hai, to protect the integrity of the business, and to avoid embezzlement of cash, chori bori na ho. That are all the things. Acha, aspects to be considered in framing a system of internal check. What things I need to consider while framing a system of internal check? No person should be allowed to carry out work from origin till its end for important area. Staff duty should be rotated time to time, and encourage your staff to take a leave at least once in a year. Okay, one who is having a physical custody of asset, he should not have a recording function. Physical custody, recording function has to be with different person. The primary aim of internal control, is to segregate your accounting, that is recording, custody. Recording, approval and custody has to be with three different persons. One who approves bad debt, one who makes entry for bad debt, and one who collects money from debtor. They have to be three persons. The authorization, recording and custodial aspect, custodial function has to be with different persons. Okay. There should be a accounting control, periodical physical verification of assets should be done. Mechanical devices, fingerprint, etc. should be basically used. Budget control should be exercised. Inventory taking time, your production dispatch should be halted. Financial admin power should be divided judicially, and this is basically aspects to be considered in framing a system of internal check. Okay, question number 14, techniques of evaluation of internal control. How do I evaluate internal control? 4 methods. 1, narrative record. checklist, questionnaire, flowchart. Okay, narrative record, whatever you found out based on your examination, you record it. So it's a complete exhaustive description of internal control as found in operation by auditor. The actual testing observation is necessary. So what I observed, what I tested, what I found, I'm recording it. That's narrative record. Okay, this is suitable where there is no formal internal control system and it's for small businesses. Acha, checklist and questionnaire. Checklist and questionnaire both are similar. It's a series of questions. The answer to them is yes, no, not applicable. Yes generally means a good system. No means not a good system. Not applicable means not applicable. The questions will be framed. So what's the difference between both? Checklist is filled by the member of auditing staff. While internal control questionnaire, we give it to the management. The person in the management will fill it and give it to us. Internal control question is usually issued to the client. Client is requested to get it filled by the concerned executive or employee. Clear? Okay, now what's a flowchart? It's a graphical presentation. It's a graphical presentation of company's internal control system. Flowchart mein, it gives a bird's eye view to you. And a properly drawn flowchart. If at all the flowchart is properly drawn, you can understand how the document flows, how the activity goes. You're able to understand. So more properly drawn flowchart can show what point of time document is raised internally or it's coming from outside, number of copies in which the document is coming, the intermediate stages coming in between, how the document is flowing, distribution of document to various sections or departments, checking authorization, who will check what thing, filing of documents, and final disposal, how it goes away. The properly drawn flowchart can show all these things. Okay, next, question number 16. Steps for risk identification. Okay, steps for risk identification. First, try to understand inherent risk. Okay, second, try to see internal control. So, try to see the control risk. So, inherent risk, control risk. Try to see any unique characteristic of risk. Assess the significance of risk, likelihood of it occurring, uske karan what all things will be affected, how much they will be affected, is it a significant risk or not, and then you document the entire process. Clear? Okay, next one we have question number 21. Okay, question number 21. Okay, one, they asked you general conditions pertaining to internal check. So I need to write the aspects to be considered in framing a system of internal check. Achha, now they are telling officer handling sales ledger accounts is also handling cash receipts. Okay, the one who is handling accounts is also having a custody of cash. No, this is wrong. Okay, one who dispatches goods also issues delivery challan. Delivery challan is recording function. And goods is custody of goods. So this is also wrong. This should be two different person. Third, one who handles customer account and issues a receipt. Ye chalega. I handle customer ke account, that's recording, and I issue some receipts, that's also recording. I don't keep cash. So this is fine. So this two mein the error is there. There should be different persons for one wale mein and two wale mein. So is there a division of work? The one who is handling cash should not be handling the ledger. Second, the delivery challan should be authorized by other officer other than the one handling dispatch. Fine. Question 25 is fine. 6 important. Okay, question number 29. May 22 exam it was asked. Question number 29, May 22 exam it was asked. Now see, we are required to form a checklist for cash and bank. And is it necessary to test when forming opinion on ICFR, internal control over financial reporting? Okay, whenever I'm reporting on ICFR, internal control over financial reporting, should we test transaction only at balance sheet date? See, our ICFR ka report is as at balance sheet date. ICFR का report is as at 31st March. It doesn't mean that you check only on 31st March. Answer is no. So it is not necessary to test only at balance sheet date. वो गलत है. Now that asks you to prepare a questionnaire for cash and bank. So have you checked that the cashier is not responsible for opening incoming mail? Cashier should not open letters. Yes is a good system. Okay. Does not authorize any of the ledger, does not authorize any receipt expenditure, does not sign check, he takes leave regularly, he inks and balances the cash book regularly, he verifies physical cash with the book figure daily, he prepares a monthly BRS, he has no other fund or investment, he holds no unnecessary balance. Yes means a good system. So you need to frame question accordingly. Question should not be framed in a manner where yes means a bad system. So if you write over here, he is not responsible में yes लिखा तो good system. तो ऐसा लिखा he is responsible for opening incoming mail, उसमें yes लिखेंगे तो वो गलत हो जाएगा. तो you need to frame your question accordingly that the yes means a good system. Clear? Okay, question number 30 was simple. You need to basically tell areas where we say there's a significant risk. So what all points we consider for deciding whether it's a significant risk? Okay, question number 31. Many times asked. Question number 31, many times asked. They are telling a newly qualified professional has received his first appointment as auditor of a large company and he is concerned about effectiveness of internal control. What are the standard operating procedure for assessment of internal control? To see internal control proper hai nahi hai, what do I check? One, enterprise ka risk management, entities risk assessment procedure. Second, whether segregation of jobs responsibility is done properly, job rotation is done on a regular basis, delegation of power is done properly, IT based controls are there or not. The standard operating procedure for assessment of internal control. The one, entity ka risk management process, segregation of duties, job rotation, delegation of financial power and IT based technology. International internal control framework, usme one of them COSO, there was a question asked on it, November 2020, COSO, Committee of Sponsoring Organization, uska internal control framework. They also say there are 5 components in internal control, same what we learnt in 315. They also say there are 5 components of internal control, same what we learned in SA 315. And they have divided the objective of internal control in 3 parts. They have categorized the objective of internal control in 3 parts. One, operational objective, to ensure the operations are running smoothly. Reporting objective, to see that the financial statements are free from fraud and error. And compliance objective, to ensure that laws and regulations are being complied. Okay, the question is asked, what are the components of internal control as per COSO? Same what we learned in 315. And the question is asked that they divide the objective of internal control in 3 parts. Which are the 3 parts? One, operations objective, operations run smoothly, that is one of the objective of internal control. Then financial objective, that is basically reporting objective, financial statements are free from fraud and errors. And third one is compliance objective, the laws and regulations are being complied. ठीक है, moving ahead, SA 315 done. I'm coming to 330. Then I'll come back to 320. Okay, the SA 315, we identified risky area. We understood it may affect one item, it may affect many items. Now, whatever risky areas you identified, we need to check those in detail. So now comes auditor's response to the SS risk. Response is nothing but our procedures. Okay, the objective is we need to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence. About the SS risk of material misstatement by designing, implementing appropriate responses. Acha, if the risk is relating to many items, we come out with which response? Overall response. This is basically for risk at financial statement level. Overall response will include what? One, we emphasize the team that we need to be more skeptic. We add more experienced staff. We provide more supervision. We add an element of unpredictability. And we make some general changes to nature, timing, extent of our audit procedure so that we are obtaining more persuasive audit evidence. This is overall response. Achha, if risk is relating to one item, If risk is relating to one item, we design further audit procedure whose nature, timing, extent are responsive to the risk at an assertion level. We design further audit procedure whose nature, timing, extent are responsive to the risk at an assertion level. Now, what extra procedures to be done? How much extra? So how much extra procedure to be done will depend on kitna extra karo. Okay, we need to design and perform further audit. How much? Kitna extra karo? So they are telling you need to consider the likelihood of the characteristic of relevant class of transaction accountable. It means you try to understand the inherent risk and you try to understand control risk. So seeing how much is inherent risk, control risk, then you decide what extra procedures I need to do. And you try to obtain more persuasive audit evidence the higher the risk. If you feel higher is the risk of material misstatement, you obtain more persuasive audit evidence. Okay. Now, if risk is at many items, come out with the overall response. Risk is at one item, you do further audit procedures for only that thing. Now, our procedures are divided in two parts. One, test of controls and substantive procedure. Now, under your test of control, it's also known as compliance procedure. Under test of control, we test the control. Now, someone asked, sir, 315 may also be did control. No, 315 was we obtain understanding. We obtain understanding of entity, environment, internal control. We understood the control. We have not tested it. Now in 330, we are testing the control. Okay, is it mandatory to test control? Answer is no. You should test control, one, when you want to rely on it. If controls are good, my other procedures I want to reduce. So you should test control when you want to rely on operating effectiveness of control, or wherever you feel substantive procedure alone will not give you sufficient appropriate audit evidence. Substantive procedure is not giving me bank interest for example, so I need to do test of controls. Okay. Now, nature and extent of test of control. Whenever you're doing a test of control, you have to use procedure in combination with inquiry. So I tested control just by doing inquiry. No. In combination with inquiry, I have to do certain other things to understand, to basically test now. How are the controls applied? The consistency with they are applied, by whom and by what means they are applied. Okay, so don't just do inquiry. In combination with inquiry, I have to do something else also. As a timing of test of control, so should I test it at any point of time? You can test any point of time. But if you've done testing, say for example in December, try to see whether there are any changes in January, February, March. Okay, so if at all you have tested in interim period, you need to see whether significant changes happen and any extra evidence you need to obtain for remaining period. Achha, can I rely on control tested in previous period? Last year I checked the control, they were working fantabulously. Last year I checked the control, they worked fantabulously. So this year I want to do substantive procedures less. So can I say I want to rely on control tested last year? Okay, if there has been changes, you have to check again. If the item is a significant risky area, you need to check again. If it's a significant risk, you need to test it again. If it is not a significant risky area, if there are no changes, you may rely on the control tested previously, but you need to check the entire controls over a period of 3 years, somewhat every year. If there are no changes, you have to test the overall control every 3 years, some controls every year. So I can rely on control tested previous period में चलेगा, but change नहीं होना चाहिए, significant risky area नहीं होना चाहिए. Now, don't just basically check the design of the control, you also check the operating effectiveness of the control, whether they are really operating effectively or not. Okay, second procedure which I do is substantive procedure. So see, compliance procedure I need to do only when I want to rely on control, or substantive procedure alone is not going to give me sufficient appropriate audit evidence. But a substantive procedure is mandatory. So irrespective of SS risk of material misstatement, you need to design and perform substantive procedure for each material class of transaction account balance disclosure. Plus you need to do substantive procedure for financial statement closing process. Like closing may balance in ledger, the same comes in trial balance, same goes in financial statement, and year-end journal entries mandatory to be checked. Achha, if it's a significant risky area, you need to perform extra substantive procedure over there. When should I do substantive procedure? If you check sales till December, you have to cover the remaining period. So Jan, Feb, March ka sales also you need to cover. And substantive procedure also includes checking the adequacy of presentation and disclosure. Fine. Okay, now you're done compliance procedure, now you're done substantive procedure, now you're done compliance procedure, now you're done what? Substantive procedure. See whether you obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence. If answer comes no, obtain further audit evidence. If answer comes no, obtain further audit evidence. Okay, Ajay has a question, sir. What if it's material item but it's not considered risky? Achha, see, if it's material item but not considered risky, still you need to perform substantive procedure. Irrespective of the risk of material misstatement, whether risk is there or not, we need to perform substantive procedure for all material class of transaction, account balance. Even if it is less risky, material hai, you need to do substantive procedure. Clear, Ajay? Okay, coming to question number 1. You want to rely on control tested previously. The question is, what are the factors that may warrant retest of control? What factors may warrant retest of control? We already saw this. If there has been changes, check again. If it's a significant risk, check again. No changes, you can rely on control tested previously. But you have to check the overall control again in 3 years, somewhat every year. Ye tha. But the question is factors. So they've also given answer as per application explanatory material. Factors that may warrant a retest of control. Factors that may warrant a retest of control. If the control environment is deficient, deficient monitoring of control, deficient general IT control, significant manual element is there, personal change is there, or some circumstances may change is there. These are the factors that may warrant retest of control. Okay, now for reliance of test of control of previous period. Okay, previous period my controls were tested. Can I rely again? Okay, he's telling it's a material area but not risky. See, if it's a significant risky area, then I have to check in this year. If it's just material, not a significant risky. If it is not a significant risky, then I may not check again, but I have to check overall over a period of 3 years, somewhat every year. Okay, question number 2. While commencing the audit, what should be the consideration to assess the risk and your responses? Now, this is a question of 315, 330 together. Okay, assess the risk. So, don't just identify risk, assess what can go wrong, whether it relates more pervasively, which items can go wrong, and the likelihood. And responses may, if it's affecting many items, come out with the overall response. If it's affecting one item, come out with response specifically. You do further audit procedure for responsive to the risk at that assertion level. How much further audit procedure depends on inherent risk, control risk, and obtain more persuasive audit evidence, more the risk of material misstatement. Third is fine. Fourth one. Okay, fourth question. If you see over here, there's some fraud happened during the substantive testing. There's some improper revenue recognition. Now, if you recall SA 240, there's a presumption that there's a risk in revenue recognition. There's a risk of fraud always in revenue recognition, and that presumption may be rebooted. You may say that presumption doesn't hold well when there's a kind of single stream of revenue. वो easy revenue है, कोई उसमें complexity नहीं है. But हाँ, when there are many streams of revenue, complexity is there, then you cannot reboot that presumption. ठीक है. So company was engaged in business of owning, managing hotels and resorts, selling tourism packages, doing some airline booking. So can I say multiple revenue sources are there? So that presumption, risk of revenue recognition may risk due to fraud, that cannot be rebooted. But the audit team were of a conclusion there is no risk in revenue recognition. So they rebooted the presumption. ठीक है, तो वो गलत था. During the course of substantive procedure, it was identified there was a revenue of 35 crore received. Partially went in company's bank account, partially in CFO's personal account. And it was shown as advance received for future booking. Oh, bapre. So there's a fraud of 35 crore committed. So I need to write about SA 240. SA 315 is written. SA 330 is also written about it. And if you check over here, the presumption that there's a risk of fraud in revenue recognition may be rebooted. For example, there's a single type of simple revenue transaction. But however, when there's a complex revenue structure, you cannot reboot that presumption. So in the current scenario, multiple streams of revenues are there. So that rebooting that presumption that revenue recognition doesn't have fraud, वो गलत था. ठीक है. An auditor, while performing risk assessment procedure, should consider the complexity. Also, there were no adequate control. Audit team should have recognized fraud risk in the revenue recognition. Acha, fraud of more than 1 crore found out, section 143.12, you need to inform to government also. Okay, next question, steps in risk-based audit. Question is steps in risk-based audit, very simple, identify risk, respond to the risk, come to your reporting. Identify risk, respond to the risk, and reporting. This is a simple question, you can read on your own, that's fine. Question number 6 is done. Okay, come to essay 320. Come to essay 320, last standard of the day. So we finished 200 series, we finished 300 series. Tomorrow morning session, I'll do 400, 500, 600, 700 series. Tomorrow evening session, I'll finish SRE, SAE, SRS and professional ethics. Okay, so going on to the last standard of the day, materiality in planning and performing an audit. ठीक है, तो whenever we are doing audit, we determine the materiality level. ठीक है. Okay, the question comes, what do you mean by the word material? Material is something which influences the decisions of users of financial statement. The information material, if it's misstatement, influences the decisions of users of financial statement. Don't judge materiality only from the size or amount. You try to see nature, legal requirement, qualitative aspect. Director did a fraud. Even if it's a small amount, director did a fraud, it's material. Plus, don't try to see individually, see it in aggregate. And determination of materiality is a matter of professional judgment. You need to apply the concept of materiality both in planning as well as performing an audit. When you're planning an audit, material items, you'll check more, you plan accordingly. And as well as when you're determining the impact of misstatement, evaluating the impact of misstatement, you'll again try to see materiality. Whether it's a material misstatement, you'll modify the report. Okay. So objective is you apply the concept of materiality appropriately whenever you are planning and performing an audit. You need to determine the materiality level as well as the performance materiality level. Now pay attention. One, we determine materiality level for a financial statement as a whole. Plus I can also determine a materiality level for a assertion level, class of transaction, account balance. Now, suppose I have determined a materiality level of 2 lakh, means I'll focus on all transaction above 2 lakh. To improve the quality of audit, I decided rather than 2 lakh, I'll focus on everything above 1.5. So that 1.5 lakh is called as a performance materiality level. The performance materiality level is nothing but an amount set by auditor at less than materiality. So as per my rules regulation, materiality level was coming 2 lakh, I had to focus on everything above 2 lakh. But I decided to focus on everything above 1.5 lakh. So I'll be checking above 1.5 lakh, I'm checking something extra that will improve the performance of my audit. So amount set by auditor at less than materiality level. Why? Why? To reduce to appropriate level. To reduce to appropriate level. The possibility that aggregate of uncorrected and undetected misstatement exceeds the materiality. Means undetected and uncorrected misstatements are more, uska probability I want to reduce. To reduce the probability, to reduce to appropriate level, the probability that aggregate of uncorrected, undetected misstatement exceeds materiality, means undetected, uncorrected mistakes are more, uska probability is reduced. ठीक है. So you determine materiality level for financial statement as a whole as well as assertion level. You also determine performance materiality for financial statement as a whole as well as assertion level, and as and when audit progresses, this level may need a revision. ठीक है. Okay, come to question number 1. What do you mean by the word audit benchmark? What do you mean by the word audit benchmark? Now, sir, what is audit benchmark? Pay attention. See, how do we determine materiality? Practically, it's some percentage. It's some percentage of PAT, PBT, turnover, net worth. So, base, are you taking base of PAT or PBT or turnover or net worth? They are called benchmark. They are called benchmark. A percentage is applied to a chosen benchmark to determine materiality. ठीक है. Now factors affecting identification of appropriate benchmark. So should I take PAT, PBT, turnover, net worth? क्या लेना चाहिए? Factors affecting identification of suitable benchmark. First, try to see the elements of financial statement. Sometimes in financial statement, revenue might not be there. You have not started earning revenue. So which are the elements available? User focuses on what? Okay, try to see nature of entity, the life cycle, industry in which we are operating. That you try to see. For example, for a service industry, revenue may not be much, but for a manufacturing or a trading one, the revenue may be much. So I cannot take everywhere revenue. ठीक है. The ownership structure, how it is financed. If it's more of debt, then the debt people will focus on net assets, because if you are not able to pay, how much they can recover, so we can take net assets. The volatility of benchmark. Try to choose a benchmark which is kind of stable, not much volatile. Acha, so now question over here, another one. What benchmark should be adopted by CAB if SRT Limited is engaged in manufacturing, sale of air condition, having regular profits? So you may choose revenue, you may choose PAT. So if you are having regular profit, you may choose PBT, or you may choose earnings, that. Acha, but if you are engaged in construction of infra projects and you have losses in previous 2 years due to pandemic, if I have losses in previous 2 years, I cannot choose profit now. The profit option in here. So now what do I choose? So I can consider revenue, or I can consider the costs. How much cost I incurred last year, how much cost I incurred this year. Uska percentage I can basically take it. The total cost or net cost, that can also be taken, but यहाँ पे profits is not there only. ठीक है. Next one, what is the relationship between materiality and audit risk? अच्छा, they are not telling materiality level. It's materiality. More the transaction material, you check more. More the transaction material, you check more. If I check more, audit risk goes down. So there's an inverse relationship between materiality and audit risk. Don't think from materiality level. The word is not materiality level and audit risk. It's materiality and audit risk. More the material, we check more, audit risk goes down. Inverse relationship. Next one, question number 3. Okay, now you had applied the concept of materiality. You got some additional information. And now you want to reevaluate the materiality. So can I revise the materiality? Answer is yes. So earlier I thought it's a less risky business. So I took materiality as 2% of PAT. But now I feel it's a risky business. So it will not be 2%, it will be 1% of PAT. So can I revise my materiality? Answer is yes. The auditor shall revise the materiality in the event of becoming aware of information that would have caused the auditor to determine a different materiality initially. Had I known about this earlier only, I would have determined a different materiality level initially. If the auditor concludes a lower materiality for the same, you need a lower materiality. Acha, so pehle 2 lakh tha, now materiality you are making 1 lakh. So now same way performance materiality also 1.5, say you need to make it 80 now. So whether it will be necessary to revise the performance materiality. So whenever you lower the materiality, you need to consider whether you need to revise the performance materiality and whether the nature, timing, extent of further audit procedure remains appropriate or not. Done. We are done for the day. We finished SA 200 series as well as SA 300 series. So 4th May is done. 8 p.m. to exact 11:30, 11:35, we are done with 200 series, 300 series. 5th May tomorrow, 2 sessions, one in morning, one in evening, 7 a.m. to 12:30. 7 to 12:30, I am going to do all your essays remaining. And 5 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. I'll do SAE, SRE, SRS and professional ethics. So tomorrow all your standards will get over, your professional ethics will also get over, and then on Monday evening 5 to 10:30 p.m. I'll do the remaining chapters. Any doubts? Anybody? Any doubts? Anybody? Okay, just one sentence for you. If you believe in God, you will definitely get what you are destined for. But if you believe in yourself and you're making efforts for it, God is going to write only those things in your destiny which you want. I know you want to crack your exams in first attempt. If you are believing in yourself and working for it, God is seeing you. He's seeing you making efforts, and he'll write only those things in the destiny that you want. But for that, you need to believe in yourself, you need to work, then the God is seeing you. So keep on working, don't stop till your goal is achieved. Bye-bye everyone, good night. See you all tomorrow morning 7 a.m. sharp. Morning 7 a.m. sharp, we'll do the remaining essays. Any doubts anybody is having, tell me. Others can leave. Tata, bye-bye. Milte hain kal morning 7 o'clock. Thank you, Ajay. Okay, I think there aren't any doubts from your side. See you all tomorrow. Bye-bye. Take care. Good night.